Do you see how tired this little guy is? Yeah, that's January. If you don't want to be like him, tune in for the February 2026 astrology forecast. Whoosh. And because I don't want to wake him up, let's pan to a future version of me telling you about what will be covered in the forecast. And in this video, I will be going over a forecast based on your rising sign. This kind of lets you know, what energy to expect in the air, as well as how to deal with it. But I will also be going into a forecast based on your sun, your moon, your Mercury, your Venus, your Mars, your Jupiter, and your Saturn. Yes, all of those, just so kind of personalize the forecast a little bit. It tells you, what you can expect on a more internal level, which can hopefully help you manage your life a little bit better externally. But just a warning before I go into the forecast, I did not go, as detailed as I normally do. I didn't do the thing where I do the general transit overview. And as opposed to, focusing on what is going to happen in February, I decided this is the month to focus on what to do about the energy, how to identify it and how to change it, because I've been so overwhelmed this month. My job has been crazy. My real job, my day job has been crazy. I recently got a new puppy. Yes, I'll insert a video.
You're gonna be on YouTube, aren't you? Yes, you are. Say, I'm gonna be famous.
And this puppy, I love him to death, but he's kept me up all night. And so I've been having to, reorganize my own life. I know a lot of things have been chaotic for a lot of people, but I'm not some guru who sits on their throne and says, oh, I know everything and everyone and I have my life together. No, I have to learn how to prioritize things too. And so I figured if there's any month to, really get into the nitty gritty about what to do about the energy, how to handle it, this is the month to do so. And so I hope that you find this forecast valuable no matter what. And as always, I have all of the timestamps down in the description so that you can, personalize your forecast. You can just watch your sections. You can watch them all if you want to. And so with that being said, let's get into the forecast. Let's get into the heart of the matter in 3, 2, 1, go.
For my Aries risings, February arrives as a study in contrast, or a deep physiological desire to hibernate, kind of meeting with an interesting and contrasting energy, reflecting this undeniable call to embody your power in life. And so we begin with the full moon in Leo, really illuminating your 5th house on February 1st. I would kind of think of this full moon as a bonfire kind of lit in the center of a snowy forest. And so you may feel this physically as a heat rising in your chest, or a quickening of your pulse, or a sudden need to be seen. No matter how that definition of seen is, it could be a very private seeing, if that makes sense. It doesn't have to be big and in an audience, but for sure you will want to create and to remind yourself and the world of who you are and why you're alive, because the 5th house touches on fun. It touches on what taps into your inner child. And so this can be experienced through a contrast of being denied your joy, or through a burning fire in the heart that makes ignoring your joy absolutely impossible. And so there could be a simple need to play and let your heart sing due to the stress of the world, or due to your soul needing that fire to invigorate your inner child in some way. And so the best way to handle this energy is to stop denying yourself joy, because this energy can bring up feelings of being scorned or rejected of the happy things in life. But at best, you can create joyous habits that radiate a new level of confidence if there's any time to kind of, lean into your needs and what brings you joy, and to be a little bit selfish with it. Honestly, now would be the time. But the major shift this month will happen when Saturn enters your 1st house on the 13th. And this can feel like a very heavy energy, but in reality, it's the energy that will push you to create and to find out how to exert your engine in such a way to allow you to be the creator of your reality. And so the energy shifts from more fluid to solid, since the 1st house transits are felt so physically within your body. And so you could feel like this new weight on your shoulders, but this also has the potential to be the grounding weight of a nice warm and wool coat, and not a burden that really drags you down. And so you will be urged to stand up straight even if you've been knocked down before, and the energy is asking you to construct an outlet worthy of the life you are trying to hold. And it's trying to give you the wisdom to know how to handle it, no matter what the mission to gaining that wisdom will look like, because that'll depend on who you are. And then simultaneously, we will have a solar eclipse in Aquarius on the 17th, which which could send a current through your 11th house. And so this feels like this sudden breeze kind of clearing a stale room. And this could bring this sort of like electric clarity to who and what causes you stand with, and what, groups or causes are you ready to walk away from, whether it relates to friend groups or, the larger causes and roles in society that you play. And so, even if the jolt takes you by surprise at first, or the transition feels tough, this energy can act as a catalyst for new dreams or a vision that can hold you authentically. And then finally, this fire this month will be surrounded by a mist in the air. And so, with a heavy concentration of planets in Pisces moving through your 12th house, the atmosphere is thick and dreamlike. And so, physically, this could translate to a sense of tiredness or feeling heavy like you are walking through water. And while your spirit or your heart really wants to express itself authentically after the full moon, especially, your body with these Pisces planets could be asking you to float or to see what is weighing your expression down in some way. And then as Mercury goes retrograde on the 25th in Pisces, the fog could almost deepen on a very mental level. And this isn't a signal to panic, although the clouds could make it easy to do so. It's an invitation to quiet your logical mind so that your intuition can finally be heard. And so if you feel the wobble of the 12th house confusion, the temptation to numb out or to scroll on your phone, doom scroll, or to disassociate is strong, which I do get because life can be hard. I have Jupiter in my 12th house right now. 12th house transits can be a little bit isolating, but you are being urged to anchor yourself in the material world wherever possible without fighting what your subconscious is sorting through. Do not fight the unknown energy this month. Learn to navigate it. And when the mind feels cloudy, try to do things that use your hands. Maybe clean out a single drawer, or repot a plant, or maybe get a plant if that would help you, or wash your sheets, or, clean your house. Do what you got to do, because these small acts of tending will satisfy Saturn's need for order while respecting the Pisces need for a gentle rhythm in your life. And you are currently in the womb of the year for you, because the 12th house planets, it's not a tomb. It's kind of this gestation point, and you are clearing out the old debris and forgiving the past versions of yourself this month, so that when the season turns, because there will be a lot of planets in Aries next month, you will be light enough to move forward. And so rest now and build your strength, because the answers you seek at this time are not found in forcing the answers, which is something that the world can often make us feel like we need to do. But the wisdom and the answers are really find in preparing your body, your vessel, to receive whatever answers are ready to come for you. And this is the perfect time this month to really embody that energy. Taurus Risings. February arrives with a distinct physical tension. It's sort of a tug of war between the safe haven you have built, or the safe haven you're trying to build, and the ambitions you are potentially stepping into in the near future. And so we begin with the full moon in Leo, illuminating your 4th house of home on the 1st of February. And I would think of this as a roaring fire in the hearth of your life, or imagine yourself kind of like a lion in a den. And so you may feel a physically pulling, sensation towards the center of your life. Maybe there's a desire to be horizontal, or to nest and to protect your private walls, or at the very least to ensure that you can live authentically within your home, or your innermost self. And this could manifest as a warm, protective swelling in the chest that asks you to secure your foundation before you attend to the world. Or it could simply feel like you just want to shut the door and be whatever and whoever makes you feel safe and secure, and you want to be authentic within that, which it does make a lot of sense, because for you, peace and stability is an absolute requirement, especially as a Taurus rising. And in reality, though, you can't really stay indoors forever. You know that, especially with Uranus moving direct in your sign, the 1st house of self. It's moving direct in Taurus on the 3rd of February. And so this acts as a nervous system upgrade. But upgrades, as we know, are destined to make the system work cleaner. But as you know, like when you upgrade your phone, for example, it can drain the battery in the process. And so this system upgrade could drain your battery in some way. And so this energy can manifest as a restless electricity in your limbs. Maybe it feels like life starts keeping you busier than normal, or perhaps there's an internal rebellious energy that is happening that kind of hits the resume button the day that this, planet goes direct, and you may be shedding a skin, and the itch to reveal the new layer is undeniable at this time, even if it feels a little destabilizing at first. The key for this energy is that regardless of what challenges you're centered this month, you have to kind of embody the energy of a surfer. You can lean into that, Taurus rising sense of stability and groundedness to stay on the surfboard, or the metaphorical surfboard, obviously, unless you're a surfer. That would be cool. If there's any surfers, go down in the comments. But also, you need to embrace the shifting waves at this time. So you've got to be the surfer, be that stable force who is adaptable at the same time. And the stabilizer will arrive this month when Saturn enters your 12th house on the 13th. And I know a lot of people are scared of this energy, but it has such potential to be a blessing because this is the monk entering the monastery. And so the energy turns inward and quiet. And it's kind of the sensation of a heavy locking door closing out the noise, granting you the privacy to confront your subconscious without an audience. And it gives a call to confront it head on. And this energy won't unplug you from life. It's about creating a space where you can finally hear yourself think so that you can understand where and how your energy can better be spent in the future. And then the solar eclipse is happening in your 10th house. This strikes on the 17th. It will be in the sign of Aquarius. And this can feel like a sudden bloom, whether triggered by an internal awakening or triggered by an external catalyst. But this brings a flash of destiny to your career, your public standing, how you approach leadership. And this gives you a set of coordinates potentially, or it could simply give you a do not enter sign when it comes to your ambition. So pay attention to what it tells you about what you do need to pursue versus what you don't need to pursue. And you may understand better what you do want from your ambitions, or through contrast, you could learn what it is that you lack. And then simultaneously, there's a cluster of planets in Pisces flooding your 11th house of community. And so the boundaries between you and the group or society are kind of softening here. And this can feel like a high tide on a beach. It's beautiful, but it's covering the path. And then when Mercury goes retrograde here on the 25th, that fog in your mind could roll in. It could become a little bit more difficult to discern which emotions belong to you and which belong to the collective, as an 11th house Pisces person tends to share energy with society. When society's stressed, you're stressed as well. But this is forcing you to reevaluate how you do want to extend your compassion to larger groups at hand. What kind of audience do you want, to either share your joy with or to share a cause with? And it helps you sort of understand how you want to channel this creative energy in your life. And so if you feel the anxiety of the eclipse, or you have this fear of being seen, or you have a fear of the chaos of the professional changes happening this month, which I totally get because putting yourself out there can be terrifying, it is a good time to return to your body's resources. And so your ritual for this month is to be an anchor, because you are entering a period of significant public ambition related evolution in your life. But a tree cannot grow its branches higher than its roots go deep. Like, you have to care for the roots first. And then when the electricity of Uranus direct in your first makes you feel ungrounded, touch the floor, walk barefoot, hold a stone, do something that really roots you in reality. That can really help you not feel completely thrown off the surfboard. And then use the Saturn in the 12th house energy to perform a controlled demolition of your old fears. In the quiet of your own company, identify the stories that say you aren't ready for the success coming your way, and then dismantle them brick by brick. And you are not losing control in February, although it can feel like it at times. You are simply renovating the structure of your life, and the chaos is just the dust rising before the new layout of where your life is going is revealed. Gemini Risings. February really presents a bit of a paradox for you. Your mind is likely racing, but your professional world could feel like it is asking you to float. Hear me out, because the month will open with the full moon in Leo in your 3rd house of communication on the 1st. And this moon could kind of feel like a solar flare in your throat chakra, because Leo is ruled by the sun, and this will light up your voice and your thoughts, revealing the nature of it and urging it to express itself authentically, while also showing you where your voice may be drowned out. And so you may feel a physical swelling in the vocal cords or a burning desire to narrate your own story. And so the impulse is to move the internal monologue out into the external world somehow, loudly and unapologetically, which makes sense because you've likely been holding on to a story that is ready to be told. And the key, as corny as it sounds, I know this will sound corny, is to really direct your thoughts, your words, and your ideas using your heart. And you'll hopefully know what I mean by this when the time comes. I'm a Leo moon, and it's actually pretty close to where this full moon is happening. And so all I got to say about it is use your voice and don't be afraid of letting it shine. However, the background frequency will be shifting at this time because Uranus is going direct in the 12th house on the 3rd, and this can be a tricky transit to pin down. It can feel like a hum of high voltage wire in a quiet room, kind of, and so your sleep could feel electric, or maybe you experience sudden flashes of insight that arrive just as you're drifting off, and it's as if your subconscious is processing data faster than your waking mind can track, and so letting your subconscious filter this information properly really requires a certain level of surrender, but also listening to your undeniable urges for security will be important at this time. And then Saturn enters your 11th house on the 13th. And the party isn't necessarily over in terms of groups, friendships, and community, but the guest list or the event list could be changing in your life. And so you are likely less tolerant towards shallow or draining networks at this time because you feel this Aries Martian drive to pave your own way in this area of life, albeit with a bit of resistance. And so you will address how you approach groups and causes in your life, and whether this means starting new groups or finding new groups to join, or maybe you just ponder your role in society. Listen to your instincts and what invigorates your body. That is key because Aries is ruled by Mars. And then simultaneously, the solar eclipse in Aquarius hits your 9th house of beliefs on the 17th. And this could feel like standing on a cliff edge where the air is thinner and clearer, and you can see the horizon more clearly. And so the old map you've been using to navigate your life could suddenly look too small, and you could find yourself hungry for a new philosophy, maybe a new city, or a new truth, which could be triggered by this sort of internal awakening that shakes up your belief system, but it could be triggered by an external event that opens new learning opportunities up to you in some way. But here's kind of where the fog rolls in, because a cluster of planets in Pisces, including your ruler of Mercury, turning retrograde on the 25th. By the way, we will have a Mercury in retrograde this month. These planets in Pisces are drifting through your 10th house of career this month. And while you may want to sprint with your ambitions, your career path or your ambitions or your leadership could feel like it's walking through a mist. And so in reality, this points to fluidity that gives you the opportunity to really write the next step yourself. And you are being asked to feel your way forward rather than thinking your way through, which I know can be frustrating for a mind that loves to think clearly. But if there is 1 month to experiment with listening to your intuition, it would be this month, even if you don't take any crazy leaps yet. And so it's a good month for creativity as well. But creativity really comes when you have total control. So you have to learn to let that go a little bit looser. And so if you feel the scatter or the mental buzz of the 12th house anxiety this month, or the 10th house fog, your medicine for this month is single tasking, which is sort of the opposite of multitasking. And Gemini is the king or queen of multitasking. But frankly, this month, it will free your nervous system a little bit, as your energy will do best really using a concentrated current. And so do one thing with your hands this month whenever you feel wired. It could just be with a little fidget spinner. I know those are outdated. Or you could do a craft, or even just, I don't know, like make some food. You could fold a laundry while the podcast is playing, write with a pen on paper, and you can really feel the friction of the ink. And these, things that engage your hands in a singular task this month will give your mind that is racing a heavy anchor, really allowing your brilliance to come out, especially the brilliance of the eclipse. And this can help you land without burning out, ensuring that the intense energy of the month doesn't unearth you, but it grounds you to a new network that can take you to new heights. Cancer Risings, February is really asking you to master the material world, your money, your resources, maybe your confidence, and also what you put out in the world, which covers the full scope of the energy. And so we will begin the month with a full moon in Leo illuminating your second house of resources on the 1st. This is kind of the sensation of gold. And so you could feel a desire to surround yourself with quality, to touch expensive fabrics, or maybe to review your bank accounts with a sense of pride rather than fear. Or at the very least, you just feel a need to hype yourself up, hype your skills up, and your sense of self-worth needs to be hyped up as well, as if you were the piece of jewelry itself, like you are the gold and you want to feel like it this month. And it acts as a physical confirmation that you are safe and that you have enough. And you could receive a validating moment of culmination or an external mirror of what it is that you don't want. It could go both ways. And if you do feel a lack around this time, you are being urged to find what part of your energy you can hype up, as this will lead to a feeling that your cup is being full, which can actually help you make the most of this full moon energy. But the anchor will kind of drop when Saturn enters your 10th house of career on the 13th. I know some people are scared of Saturn in the 10th house. It's an angular house. I just want to say every time Saturn's been in an angular house for me, it has led to some of my biggest breakthroughs in life. And this energy is kind of like the matriarch taking the throne. And so the energy shifts from emotional to structural, especially with how you exert yourself and how you chase your dreams, your career, or your ambitions. And you could kind of feel, this heavy steel rod sensation in your spine, and you are being asked to step into a role of authority, whether it's self-made authority or maybe external circumstances are forcing you to stand in this authority. And the time for hiding in your shell is kind of over, because the world will require you to lead, even if your knees are shaking a little bit, which I get it. I have my knees shaking all the time too, especially when I have to put myself out there. And even if you feel nowhere near ready, the key is confidence in the next step you take, whether it's a baby step or a leap. And even just taking a step, like, you're closer to where you want to be, even if it's like a millimeter of a step. So just remind yourself of that no matter what happens this month. And then the solar eclipse in Aquarius will be striking your 8th house on the 17th. And so if the second house is the vault with the gold analogy, the 8th house is the alchemy within it. And so the transit really unearths the basement of your life with shared finances, debts, and the deep psychological entanglements. And it's the equivalent of figuring out the combo of a safe that you didn't know how to open before, and then unlocking a sense of power that you never had. Or maybe you realize the factors in your life that drain you of your power and your freedom. And so it can feel like a sudden release of pressure or cutting of an energetic cord that has been draining you for too long. And so feel the pull of your energy during this eclipse. And if the pull for some reason sucks you dry, the key is to figure out how to sever that tie, and doing so with an Aquarian perspective. So you got to think smart, not hard, when it comes to this solution. And then meanwhile, the Pisces energy this month is flooding your 9th house of beliefs and learning. And so your mind is seeking a shoreline, and you're on a boat going, well, you're going somewhere, anywhere. And so you may feel a physical longing to be elsewhere, really physically traveling or intellectually escaping into philosophy, which, with the tension happening in the world, I totally get. And then when Mercury goes retrograde here on the 25th, you are revisiting the wisdom you learned in the past to help you navigate the present in a new way, especially as you deal with the aftermath of what Saturn has done within your 9th house for the past few years. And so now that the storm of Saturn is out of your 9th house, the time to navigate has come, even if it's more of an intuitive navigation, which maybe you did learn how to do with Saturn and Pisces. And so if you feel the intensity of the 8th house eclipse, or the fear of the unknown, or the weight of the entanglements at this time, return to the element of water this month. And so your ritual is the cleansing, because the 8th house governs what we hold onto that actually isn't ours. So when you feel stressed, take salt baths, maybe visualize the water drawing out the debt or the guilt and the expectations of others. It's drawing it out from your pores almost. And as the water drains, imagine those cords being severed. And so then you need to stand up and dry off, because with Saturn in your 10th house, you are not a victim of the tides, you are the captain of the ship. And it can feel like the water keeps splashing you, but your autonomy will become clear if you can properly decode the energy of the planets this month. And this will allow you to steer the ship of your life into new horizons after living so long in an energy of potential lack. And this is the perfect month to really turn those tides in your favor. Leo Risings, welcome to the club. February places you kind of center stage, but the script is likely being rewritten in real time, which can be daunting as sometimes we just want the spoilers. But when you realize that your own potential is to write the script in whatever way works for you, it could be a time where you kind of realize how glad you are to be the one writing that script. Or at the very least, you're just glad to be able to grab the pen and you have this willingness to learn how to write the script of your life, even if you don't really see the fruits of that labor yet. And so the month opens with the full moon in our first house of Leo on the first. We have a first house full moon, and so this can be intense. I have moon in my first house natally, and this, you will really feel your identity in the spotlight. I would think of this as main character energy, and so physically it can feel like a dilation or a magnifying glass on your sense of being. Your aura will feel wider, your skin will feel warmer, and there's a biological imperative to be seen no matter the nature of how you want to be seen. I know a lot of us like to hide, but you will want to be seen in some way, even if it's on a smaller scale. And so you could want to radiate to the world, maybe just even create a fireplace from within, as the illuminated energy will tell you a lot about where your self-esteem falls. And so it's a moment where hiding feels impossible, which can be exhilarating or exhausting depending on your battery level at this time. And it's a time where you have permission to hype yourself up, even if that hype typically brings you shame. And whether someone or even yourself is scorning your pride with this full moon energy, warming up your own soul is the key to shine at this time. And then we have Saturn entering the ninth house of beliefs and higher learning on the 13th. And this is the anchor of self-made belief. And your mind could shift from the drama of the moment to the wisdom of the long term. And you are likely no longer interested in fleeting opinions. You are building a philosophy from scratch that can hold you up when the ground shakes. And even if you are being asked to build it completely different than what you were conditioned with, you can build it with intention and with strategy so that whatever expansion you pursue keeps your flame for life really alive. Because with the ninth house in Aries, we really do have to construct our beliefs from scratch. And this is the time where you start to take that more seriously. However, there will also be a solar eclipse in Aquarius striking the seventh house of relationships on the 17th, really providing an interesting contrast to the full moon energy. It'll be very different, trust me. And so if you are the sun, your partners, whether it's romantic or business, co-workers or platonic, they're kind of like the weather. And frankly, the weather can be a bit erratic. Forecasts on the weather, as you know, are not 100% correct at all times, which can sometimes make your sun feel bright if the weather is good, but sometimes your sun can be covered if there's a lot of clouds. That's how this energy will feel emotionally. And so this transit can feel like a sudden gust of wind that blows open a door you thought was shut. Maybe people are acting out of character, or in terms of a relationship you have, this could shift overnight, or maybe simply the way you radiate could become more or less selective towards others depending on what the climate of your life demands. Maybe you want to connect with people more deeply, or maybe you want to just cut people off who drain you. And it creates an electric, unpredictable charge in the space between me and you. But it's about ensuring your life doesn't dim, but the weather isn't ignored either. It's about finding that balance. And simultaneously, there will be a heavy concentration of Pisces planets flooding your eighth house of shared resources and the intense part of life all throughout the month. And so the atmosphere in the most vulnerable parts of our lives could be dense and very foggy. Maybe dealing with taxes, inheritances, or deep emotional intimacy could feel like wading through warm water. It could feel slow, immersive, and sometimes confusing. And then when Mercury goes retrograde here on the 25th, which I know you're thinking, no, please, no more retrogrades, but the need for clarity will become paramount at this time. You are being asked to read the fine print on your soul contracts, even if the text looks blurry, and you are being asked to stay in touch with what is rooted in reality, even if the deep energies in life attempt to sweep you away. Maybe also look at some debts as well. I know that might be something I'm starting to look at more as well, but if you do drift away at this time, really ensure it is to surrender to the flow of life so that you can alchemize how you approach even the heaviest of storms. And so, if you feel the seventh house instability this month, or maybe the fear of abandonment or the chaos of others really dimming your life, especially also with that first house full moon, your medicine right now, or especially during February, is to have mirror work. And so, stand in front of a mirror, look into your own eyes, because the eclipse in the seventh house is breaking the old mirrors or the partners and the people you connected with who reflected a smaller version of you, because you are an independent light who radiates no matter what. And you are the person who faces any person and any situation with the regality of a lion and their head held high. You like to look at people and situations fairly. With the seventh house in Aquarius, that's just what you do. And so really embrace that energy. Don't try to fix the reflection. Don't try to fix others. Really, if you're going to fix anything, fix the source, fix you, fix how you relate to others. You can cut people off if they're not serving you. And when you stabilize your own frequency, the relationships that can match you will calm down, trust me. But the ones that cannot will naturally fall away, allowing you to be someone who doesn't have to exert effort for connection, but someone who naturally draws in people who operate at your frequency and allow you to radiate authentically. And it's when you do this that every other area of your life can come in balance, and that is the potential for this month. Virgo Risings. February arrives as a delicate balancing act for you, a negotiation between the mechanics of your daily life and the deeper, quieter mysteries of your human heart. And so we will begin with a full moon in Leo, illuminating your 12th house on the 1st of February. And so think of this energy as a lantern being lit in a secret room in your life. This room where your subconscious has plans that need that light to see what they are. And this journey into your subconscious can show you maybe where your authenticity and confidence has been stripped of you, because the 12th house can relate to self-undoing as well. And a lot of people with Leo in the 12th house do kind of, self-sabotage when it comes to their confidence. And so in reality, your subconscious will be full and your body is asking for a moment of stillness to really process the noise of the world and to learn what makes your heart sing. And this makes sense because you usually carry a heavy mental load as a Virgo rising. And you deserve a moment where no one needs you and you can kind of hype yourself up. Because remember, Leo is ruled by the sun. And so allowing that 12th house energy to not be rejected is a silent vow to allow yourself the room to focus on your light first above all else. And the stabilizer of this month kind of arrives when Saturn enters your 8th house on the 13th. I just went through this transit. I just want to put this out there. I'm going to end this transit completely void of student loans, and I started with over 20K. This does not have to be a bad transit, but this transit will definitely, no matter what, feel like a heavy weight, but it can actually be an anchor if you understand what this energy really demands from you. And so while the 12th house is dreaming with that Pisces energy flooding into that house this month, Saturn in the 8th house is kind of helping you to secure your deep bonds and shared resources. It allows you to write your own code when it comes to how these intense parts of life play out. But remember, Aries is going to be the sign of initiation. Your 8th house is very initiative in nature. So this demands a review of debts or energetic exchanges, yes, but it is trying to give you the security of knowing exactly where you stand with others and teaching you how to drive your initiative and action-oriented energy into directions that can help you derive your own power, which is why listening to your instincts and really, tackling the deep parts of life head on instead of being a little bit avoidant with it is the key at this time, not just for February, but for the next few years. And the world right now, it's kind of moving fast, and you will definitely sense this because the solar eclipse in Aquarius will hit your 6th house of routine and health on the 17th. And this energy can act as a sudden electrical upgrade to your nervous system. And you could feel this as a buzzing feeling in the gut that really demands you rebel against your outdated routines. Or perhaps maybe there's this sudden, unexpected shift in your work schedule or your daily rhythm. And it can feel like an interruption, but in reality, take this as a redirection. Aquarius likes to rebel against what no longer serves them. And the universe is really trying to break you out of routines that were secretly burning you out, really offering you a chance to build a day-to-day life that actually supports your energy rather than draining it. And when you run into a bump in your day-to-day life, which could happen, and if you run into something that drains you, it is the perfect time to pause and simply ask, how can I make this better or more efficient? How can I work smarter and not harder? Meanwhile, a soft wave of Pisces energy floods your seventh house of relationships all throughout the month. There's going to be a Pisces stellium. And so this brings a dreamlike quality to your connections. So to your analytical eye, people might suddenly look like watercolor paintings. They can look beautiful, but lack defined edges. And you may feel a pull to merge, maybe to forgive or to see the best in others. And then as your ruler of Mercury goes retrograde, in Pisces on the 25th, the signals could get a little bit crossed. This isn't a signal to, panic or to put up walls, although the lack of clarity can be confusing for you. You're a Virgo rising, you like things in order. And so this energy is really an invitation to feel your way through your connections and to also feel your way through the lessons that Saturn taught you in the last few years, rather than trying to analyze these things on a spreadsheet. And you need to learn to trust your instincts instead of your hopes. This is going to be absolutely key. And so asking yourself what within connection can inspire you without blinding you. This is the absolute key. Whether you do have connections in your life you're trying to, develop stronger, or whether you are single or you don't connect to a lot of people and you want to make more connections in your life. And so if you feel the anxiety of the sixth house, especially with the eclipse coming up, the urge to fix, perfect, and control will be strong, which I get because chaos feels unsafe to the Virgo nervous system. And so you are being urged to instead kind of create this small pocket of order without trying to control the whole ocean, as a sailor cannot control the ocean, but they can direct the sails. Do not fight the tide of this month. It could feel like a lot of things are going outside of your control, especially with the eighth house transits. Instead, tend to the boat of your life when you can. And so when the schedule feels chaotic, clean one thing perfectly, scrub the sink until it shines, or organize a single bookshelf. Maybe even organize your appearance. I know a lot of Virgo risings for some reason like to really take care of their appearance. Groom yourself. Take meticulous care of what is within your control, and don't be afraid to revolutionize your way of doing things that is outdated. And so these small acts of tending can act as an offering to the stresses of February. And by creating a small pocket of this order, you can soothe your nervous system and remind yourself that while the world could be unpredictable, your hands are still capable of creating peace. And not only that, but you can find peace in so many areas of your life. And that is ultimately the goal for you. For my Libra rising, February arrives as a study and contrast for you. It's a delicate negotiation between the applause of the crowd or the connection to something bigger than yourself, and the quiet, rebellious, and beautiful work of creating your own joy. And so we begin the month with the full moon in Leo, illuminating your 11th house of community on the 1st. And I would think of this as kind of this collective bonfire. And so you may feel this energy physically as a heat rising when you open your group chat, or you walk into a room with friends, or connections, or when you enter the space of a social cause that you connect to. And there could be a pressure to perform or to mediate or to be the glue that holds everything together, or at the very least there could be a pressure to have your vision be visible on a larger scale in some capacity with this full moon. And the energy could be experienced as this beautiful rush of belonging, really allowing you to radiate within that bubble, or conversely, as a feeling that the demands of your network are suddenly too loud and undeniable, that it overpowers your light in some way, which does make sense because you are often the one balancing the energy of the room as a Libra rising. And right now, the room of life can be full and intense, and you're being asked to not reject your authenticity, but to bask in it unapologetically, especially as the full moon peaks. And then we have Saturn entering your seventh house on the 13th. And this can shift your relationships from more fun to functional, but in the best possible way if you can direct this energy properly. And so the energy is moving from more of the honeymoon phase to the creation phase of connection. And so you are no longer interested in potential, and maybe you could be more interested in reliability, and compromise a lot less likely than normal once this transit begins. And it can feel serious, but in reality it is the energy that allows you to build partnerships, whether business or romantic or platonic, that are sturdy enough to actually last, but also balanced enough to not tip over your scales. And so, whenever you interact with people this month, it's a good thing to imagine a veil around yourself that equalizes your energy with their energy to ensure that every interaction you meet aligns with the criteria that you now want within interaction. And then we have the solar eclipse in Aquarius striking your fifth house of creativity and joy on the 17th, bringing a more wired energy in a way. And so while the 11th house is kind of the audience or the network, and we had a full moon there earlier, the fifth house is the artist or the creator that exists within you. But also, that artist or that creator, whatever you refer to yourself as, is going a little bit off script, really to chase an avant garde definition of joy. And so you could feel this electric, restless urge to abandon the group plans or the expectations of society in some way and to do something purely for yourself. It's kind of a reboot of your pleasure centers that asks you to prioritize your spark over your obligations. And even if you cannot figure out exactly how to channel this pleasure in your life immediately, it can help you to write down your thoughts anytime you feel a wired push to do anything around this time. Figure out how you can channel that energy into a way that's actually fun. And simultaneously, this month, there will be a soft wave of Pisces energy flooding your sixth house of routine. And this kind of softens the edges of your daily schedule. So, physically, this might feel like moving underwater at work, or maybe a slight drag or a brain fog that makes spreadsheets or ritualistic tasks feel more impossible than normal. And then, as Mercury goes retrograde here on the 25th, the linear path of your life could disappear entirely. And this isn't a signal that you are failing or that you're lazy, although any lack of productivity could make you feel guilty. This is kind of an invitation to flow through your day rather than march through it, and to find a way to flow through your routines in a way that gives results based on an intuition tapped into truth and that really considers the demands of your life. And so your body is asking for a rhythm that is more intuitive and less rigid, and your body will be the compass that eventually gets you there. And so if you feel the fog of the sixth house this month, the confusion about health, work, or your daily rhythm, which I do get because as a Libra, you do thrive on balance in your life, you are kind of being urged to stop forcing linear productivity and to start listening to your body. Do not fight the fog, learn to navigate it. And when the mind is unreliable, trust the body this month. And so your tip is twice a day, simply stop moving. Close your eyes, scan from your head to your toes, ask where's the tension and where's the flow, and do not try to fix anything with a new diet or strict regimen just yet. Just witness it, because these small acts of tending now allow you to work with the Pisces energy rather than fighting against it. And you are currently engaging in a creative rebellion this month as well, because with the fifth house eclipse, this is an invitation to start playing, and you are clearing out the obligation to please everyone else so that when the season turns and there's a slew of planets in Aries, which will be happening in March, you will remember what it feels like to please yourself above all else. And so create now, ignore the crowd, and the joy you seek is not found in the collective pool, but in the quiet studio of your own heart. Scorpio Rising, February comes for the structural pillars of your life, maybe your public legacy and your private safe haven. It can be intense, but let's be honest, if anybody was built for intensity, it is you. You guys are so resilient. And so we begin with the full moon in Leo, lighting up your 10th house of career on the 1st. And I would think of this energy as a coronation. So you may feel a physical swelling of pride or a surge of adrenaline as your work becomes recognized, or you could feel a calling to authentically shine when you do step out into your public role. And so the spotlight could be on you, whether it's a self-directed spotlight or a spotlight by the public. And for a moment, you can feel the heat of your own ambition fully realized, as long as you do not reject it in shame. And this energy can be experienced as a peak moment of professional victory, or conversely, as a feeling of exposure that demands you stand tall, even if you'd rather be invisible. And this could also, manifest as maybe you realize what would make your heart feel full. And this all makes sense because you value control over your life, but right now it's time to chase your ambitions, even if you feel silenced by a million different variables in your life. And then the stabilizer will arrive as Saturn enters your sixth house on the 13th. And so the energy of the fifth house can be more light and more fun, but the sixth house is where the work happens, but it's where the potential of your life is also fully realized. And Saturn kind of brings a dry, disciplined heat to your daily routine, really urging you to watch how you exert your energy, as Aries is ruled by the planet Mars. And your body is demanding a new level of respect, and this respect is what can help you move mountains in your life. And so this can feel like a grind, but in reality, it is the training montage that builds the physical stamina you need in order to hold your new level of success. And you are being asked to not just grind through your routines, but to observe them as a curious student and figure out how you can approach your day in a way that properly sustains your fuel. But as you rise in how you aim to achieve, the ground will shift not to break you, but to hold you better, because the solar eclipse in Aquarius will hit your fourth house of home and family on the 17th. And I would think of this energy as a sudden, fresh breeze blowing through a window that you thought was sealed shut. And so you could feel a shift in your living situation or a new liberating perspective regarding your roots or your ancestry. And it's kind of this feeling of space opening up within your home, really demanding that you clear out the clutter and make room for new growth in your life. And even if the shift feels surprising at first, in reality, this is the energy breaking you free from past conditioning that was too small to hold the person you are becoming. And for some people, you will want to move because of this transit. But for those who are firmly planted, observe the roots of your life, figure out their needs so that you can take this insight and plant something valuable with it. And then meanwhile, there is a wave of Pisces energy flooding your fifth house all throughout the month. And this is kind of the soft place to land for the month, because your creativity and romance, or your romantic life, or your childlike joy are taking on a dreamlike watercolor quality almost. And so you could feel immersed in inspiration or a deep soulful affection. And then as Mercury goes retrograde on the 25th in Pisces as well, the nostalgia of your life could deepen. And so this isn't a signal to get lost in the past, although old flames or past creative projects could make it feel a little bit tempting. It's an invitation to revisit those old sparks and to see if they can be brought into the present with new wisdom. And so allow any instances of childlike joy in your life to flow without control, and tune into your intuition, not your mind, to see where that joy is trying to take you. And so if you feel the shift of the fourth house, or the urge to uproot, or the anxiety of the past, which I get because feeling safe is everything to a Scorpio, your medicine is really rooting yourself, rooting your life, and rooting your energy. Do not fight any changes that come about this month. Build the outlet to allow the change to meet your dreams instead of letting the world's energy write the script for you, because Scorpio is a fixed water sign. You need a floor. And so when the anxiety hits, lie flat on your back, on the ground, or on your bed if your ground is dirty. I get it. Or press your palms into, whatever you can, your mattress, the floor, whatever you're landing on, and remind your body whenever you're anxious that I am here. The structure holds, because you are not the chaos of the eclipse. You are the one who survives it. So use the Saturn energy of the sixth house to really, take care of yourself, cook a warm meal, give yourself a hot bath, treat yourself, however that looks. And by tending to the simple biological reality of your life, you can survive such complex emotional storms throughout the month, which could carry you so far in so many areas of your life. Sagittarius Rising, February really asks you to reconcile your hunger for the horizon with the needs of your home. It's a classic Sagittarius dilemma, but this month, the contrast is turned all the way up. And so we begin with the full moon in Leo illuminating your ninth house on the 1st. And I would think of this as the call to adventure ringing out in a quiet room. And so you could feel a physical expansion in the lungs, or a burning desire to speak your truth, to book the flight, or to preach the gospel of your latest discovery, no matter how that looks. And this kind of acts as a somatic surge of optimism that makes the current borders of your life feel suddenly too small. And it can be experienced as a joyous realization of how big the world is, or conversely as a restless agitation because you feel fenced in by your current reality in some way, which makes sense because you were designed to roam, and the energy is really demanding you to stretch your legs. And so whenever you feel a pull towards something bigger than yourself, whether it's education, a new horizon, maybe a travel opportunity, you are being called to embrace it with pride and without shame, even if the world is trying to pull you to a smaller corner and convince you that this adventure isn't even possible. And then Saturn enters your fifth house on the 13th, and the party isn't over with your fifth house. I know a lot of people associate the fifth house with fun, but the playlist of, the party in your life may be changing a little bit, and you are moving from mindless fun to deliberate joy in your life because creativity is no longer just a whim. It is something that shows up spontaneously. It is becoming a discipline that your energy can now be directed towards consciously if you listen to the lessons that Saturn is trying to teach you. It can feel weighty, but in reality, it is the energy that turns a hobby into a masterpiece, or it turns it into something that you can actually embrace without feeling shame. And it's not about, whether you take action, it's more about how you take action. So ensuring your energy is balanced and whatever you pursue will be something to really gauge at this time. And then the solar eclipse in Aquarius hits your third house of communication on the 17th. And so while the ninth house looks at the big picture, the third house looks at the details. And frankly, the details could feel a little bit electric right now. And so your daily environment, your daily commute, your inbox, your neighborhood could be prone to short circuits. You could feel a buzzing anxiety in the mind, almost like a radio scanning through channels too quickly. Maybe new ideas arrive in flashes, really disrupting your usual mental programming. And even if the racing thoughts feel overwhelming at first, in reality, this is a download of new data that will eventually help you navigate the big horizon you are dreaming of. So just sit in the comfort of that erratic energy, and this can eventually be the mental weapon that you can use to catalyze change in your life. Meanwhile, there will be a heavy mist of Pisces energy settling into your fourth house of home all throughout the month, and this could soften the edges of your private life almost. And so walking through your front door, for example, could feel like entering a dream state. It could be slower, quieter, and more emotional, and you could feel a lethargy that really demands you lay horizontal, or maybe there's a blurring of boundaries with family members or your innermost self. And then when Mercury goes retrograde here on the 25th, it will go retrograde in Pisces as well. The ghosts of the past may drift through the living room or through your innermost self. And whether this is illuminated within the home or within your deepest self or within your family, the echoes of your private life will tell you what you are being called to let go of and to channel into a more creative direction. And this isn't a signal to run away, although the heaviness can make you want to. It's an invitation to handle your family dynamics, your innermost self, or your living situation with compassion rather than avoidance, really letting your intuition guide you on what your next move is. And so if you feel your third house scattering or like the anxiety of your racing mind this month, which I get because silence is hard to sit in, your medicine is to sit in that silence. And this silence can also really help you center your fourth house or your innermost self so that you can understand what the Pisces energy this month is pulling you towards. You have to be able to hear your intuition. And the only way to do that sometimes is to be silent. And Sagittarius loves to expand, but this month that expansion requires a quiet center. So practice the noble silence. And so for the first hour of the day, do not speak, do not consume content, and let the mind settle like little grains of sand in a glass of water, because by refusing to engage with the noise immediately, you really protect your nervous system from the eclipse static that's kind of happening this month, and you can preserve your energy for that big ninth house vision that you may have gotten during that full moon, so that when you do enter the world, no matter how that is, you do so ready to shine in your authentic vision. Capricorn Rising, February arrives as a study in contrast. It's a deep internal renovation of your roots, meeting up with an electrical upgrade to your sense of self-worth. And so we begin with the full moon in Leo, illuminating your eighth house on the 1st. And I would think of this as a light being turned on in the deepest vault of your life. And you may feel this physically as a release in the gut or a sudden knowing that a debt, whether emotional or financial, is ready to be cleared. And as Leo is ruled by the sun, this full moon could either illuminate the emotional requirements to clear and reset the power dynamics in your life, or it could illuminate, keyword illuminate because it is the sun, what has been stripping you of your confidence and your power. And this can be experienced as a moment of intensity or as a deep sense of relief, like finally setting down a backpack that you've been carrying for miles, which makes sense because you often carry the weight for everybody else. And this moon is asking you to put it down and asking you to gain confidence in your ability to to weather any storm. And whatever you are forced to confront this month, you can feel assured that approaching it with your authentic light is key to understanding what you should do next in your life. And then the stabilizer for the month arrives when your ruler of Saturn enters your fourth house on the 13th. And this is kind of like the architect laying the new stones of your life, whether it involves your literal home, your family, or your innermost self and your connection to your roots. And it acts as a grounding force in your private life. And it may feel like a deepening sense of duty towards maybe your family or your home, or at the very least, your innermost self could demand more attention, and maybe your instincts feel more call towards that direction in some way. But in reality, you're kind of building the outlet or the foundation that will hold your success for the next 20 years. And it has potential to be the grounding weight of a heavy wool coat in your life, protecting you from the elements rather than a burden that you have to drag around. And then simultaneously, the solar eclipse in Aquarius will strike your second house of money, resources, income, self worth on the 17th. And if the eighth house is the release, the second house is the intake. And so, frankly, your intake is evolving. And so, you could feel a sudden electric shift in how you value your labor or your time. Time is a resource, remember that. And so, you could receive unexpected news regarding income or money, whether for better or for worse, or you could feel maybe like you have this internal download, realizing what is blocking the flow of resources in your life. And in reality, this eclipse is not about instability, nor does it have to result in it. It's about waking up to a new way of resourcing yourself that feels more authentic while rebelling against the old versions that don't work, even if it feels less traditional than what you're used to. And so listen to what direction makes your spirit feel liberated. And you don't need to start the revolution today, but you can learn the first step that will help you reclaim your autonomy. But also, the air around your communication will be thick this month because with a heavy concentration of planets in Pisces moving through your third house all throughout the month, your usually sharp and practical nature could tune into a poetic and intuitive frequency. And so, physically, this can translate into daydreaming and meetings or communicating through vibes rather than bullet points, as perhaps maybe this is the language at this time that seems to resonate a bit better right now. And then as Mercury goes retrograde in the same sign on the 25th, the linear path could feel lost altogether in some ways. And this is kind of an invitation to feel the room rather than to analyze it, and to take the message that your intuition is teaching you and to learn what to do with that message, especially as Saturn has left your third house recently. And your intuition is trying to speak louder than your logic right now. And this could be worth listening to. So if you feel confusion, tune into your center. See what the clear part of the void really has to say to you right now, not the part that contains fear, because fear is very different than intuition. Intuition feels very clean, and that's how you can distinguish the two this month. And so if you feel the second house instability this month, the fear of not enough could feel very intense, which I get because security is your love language. And so your medicine is to really lean into weight because you are ruled by Saturn. You do respond to weight. Carry a stone, carry a rock, find a rock that fits in your palm. If you have, a crystal or, a rock already, or if you just go outside, it doesn't really matter, but keep it in your pocket because when the eclipse makes the air feel thin and your worth feels shaky, hold that stone, feel its weight, its age, its permanence, and remind yourself, I am built to last like this stone because you do not need to chase security. You are going to be the mountain that creates it. And by tapping into your value this month, whether it's literal value, monetary value, emotional value, or within your talents, you will feel rooted and ready to take on the energy that could surface this month with so much strength and with so much productivity. For my Aquarius rising, February isn't really a transition for you. It's more of a reboot. And so the system is coming back online, but the interface of your life is likely changing completely. And so we begin the month with the full moon in Leo, illuminating your seventh house of relationships on the 1st. And I would think of this transit as the external mirror. And so you could feel a physical tension in the chest or maybe a somatic pull between your strong sense of individuality and the emotional demands of maybe other people in your life, or maybe this yearning desire to shine authentically within connection, no matter what that looks like. And the people in your life could be reflecting a version of you that feels outdated or small, or they could simply be inspiring you to grow so much bigger, which makes sense because you are currently growing and updating your system at the speed of lightning. And so the key is no matter whether this transit brings a clash of egos or whether it brings a strong desire to connect, ensure that the way you do connect can really allow you to bask in that Leo like light through this connection in such a way that also supports your personal upgrades at the same time. And if for some reason they don't, just know that this upgrade within who you are will continue no matter what, and that this upgrade will allow you to see how connection does belong in your life. And then Saturn enters your third house on the 13th, and this reboot really requires a new language, or it requires you to exert your thoughts in a new and disciplined way. And so your communication style really shifts from more casual to structural, or you may be forced to understand how to give your ideas more weight. And you are likely no longer interested in small talk or surface level ideas that don't lead to a road of fulfillment. You are interested in coding your reality with precision and following your instincts to do so. It can feel heavy, but it gives your words immense weight and authority. And it's about ensuring your weight can be turned into, productive directions in your life instead of turning that weight and applying it to yourself. And then simultaneously, the solar eclipse is hitting your first house on the 17th. And this is a systematic recalibration of your identity. And so physically, this can feel like electricity in the system. You could feel wired, restless, or uncomfortable in your own skin, like your clothes are suddenly too tight. And this is kind of the sensation of shedding, because you're not just changing your mind, but you are also not falling apart at the same time. You're just simply changing your avatar, which, given the nature of human instinct, can be tough. We don't like change, but it can be so rewarding. And the way you present yourself to the world is undergoing a sudden evolution. And even if the shedding process feels raw or destabilizing at first, in reality, the energy acts as a catalyst for a version of you that can handle the capacity of what you want to create out of your life. And so whenever you do feel uprooted, remember that you have the power to customize your avatar, and let this knowledge really comfort you when things become uncertain. And then finally, a cluster of Pisces planets will be flooding your second house of values all throughout the month. And so while your identity is electric, your resources could feel fluid. So money, possessions, and self-worth could feel undefined right now. And then as Mercury goes retrograde in the same sign on the 25th, the financial picture could get a little bit foggy, and your self-worth or resources could be called into question. And so this isn't a signal to panic about your worth or your resources or your cash, although I know fluidity can be unnerving. It's just an invitation to review your budget, how you allocate your resources, how you view your self-worth, and ensure that your allocations align with who you are becoming, not who you were, which only your intuition can tell you how to do this. And so this month, if you feel that first house restlessness or the electric buzz of the eclipse, which I get because you are very high voltage as an Aquarius rising, your medicine is to take a cold plunge when necessary, because Aquarius rules circulation and the nervous system. So kind of make a shock to that system intentionally. So end your shower with 30 seconds of cold water. And I know you could hate it, but the worst thing that can happen from trying 30 seconds is that you don't like it, which, oh, whoop-de-doo. Or you could just maybe even just step outside into cold air without a coat just for 1 minute, because the eclipse energy can feel hot and electric, but the cold will ground it back into biological reality and back into your body. And it really reminds you, I am here, I'm in this body, I am safe, which can ground you in reality to conquer the energy that the month is demanding from you. Pisces risings. February places you in a little bit of a paradox. You are the magnetic center of a room, but your bank account or your, sense of self-worth is likely asking for very strict borders. You're likely evaluating your value right now. And so we begin the month with the full moon in Leo in your 6th house on the 1st. And I would think of this transit as the body check. So physically, you could feel a block where your capacity for day-to-day life needs to expand. And so your physical body could need attention attention in some ways, but from an angle of care or an angle that wants you to find the magic in the mundane and that wants you to shine as your authentic self, even if something is a little bit boring. And it's a time to really glamorize the necessary. It's the equivalent of kind of needing your life to be a musical where you can break out in song and let yourself shine even when things are not glamorous, which makes sense because you need a rhythm to get through the day right now. And this rhythm can inspire confidence in how you approach your life. And then the anchor drops when Saturn enters your second house on the 13th. And this is the treasurer really locking the vault of your life. And so while you feel expansive and mystical with first house transits this month, your resources really require discipline, and you could feel your instincts driving your attention to what you own versus what you're worth. And the energy is here to ensure that you are learning to hold your value rather than to leak it. And so being intentional with your energy, how you spend your time, and how you spend your resources is the key that can unlock an abundance of opportunities to improve your worth. And the key is to understand how to exert your energy and to not let it leak towards things that drain you of your value. But while the body is maybe trying to find its grounding, your spirit is going to be fine because there will be a solar eclipse in Aquarius hitting your 12th house on the 17th. And this is kind of the closet in the attic really blowing open, so your dreams could be vivid, your sleep could feel erratic, and your intuition could be loud, but your subconscious is very active. And you are processing the endings of the last 18 months in rapid fire, and it kind of acts as a spiritual detox, which can leave you feeling a little bit raw, and the insights could process almost like a digital flower really blooming in real time. But in reality, this isn't a crisis, even if it feels like it at the time. It's a clearing. You are making space for a new version of you that can land, but it cannot land if the space isn't big enough to hold the update. Whether a hidden enemy kind of sparks this upgrade or whether it happens in the deepest realms that are outside of your scope, just know that even when your nervous system senses this energy, and even if you cannot spot exactly where it's coming from, it really is a sign to gather data from the noise and to understand the unseen power that you can unlock from this noise. And then finally, the spotlight turns to you because there is a cluster of planets in Pisces, your first house, making its way throughout the entire month. And this will make you incredibly porous and magnetic. So you could be glowing or at least full of more energy. Maybe people are drawn to you, projecting their hopes and dreams onto you, and your idea of who you are and who you want to be is becoming clearer in an I can write this book type of way. And so you feel fluid, empathetic, and maybe a little bit undefined. And then when Mercury goes retrograde in your sign on the 25th, you're kind of rewriting your own narrative from the inside out. And this really invites a pause, asking you to float just for a moment rather than forcing a definition. And so unpack what parts of yourself have kind of been projected onto you and what parts align with who you truly are. And don't try to force this answer through logic because your intuition will unlock it. And the answers come when you don't really strain, but instead tap into the void that knows without fear. And so if you kind of feel this first house fog or this 12th house intensity or the sense of drifting or dissolving, your medicine for caring for yourself and for your body, as weird as it sounds, is it can help you to focus on your feet. Hear me out, because Pisces does rule the feet. So if you massage your feet, if you adopt your setting to be as physically comfortable as possible, make sure you have rugs in your home or your office, or maybe every night before bed you can use magnesium lotion. I know that helps a lot of people sleep as well. I don't know how that works. I'm not a scientist, but it's crazy. So massaging magnesium on your feet can help. But in every act you do, no matter what you're doing, whether you're working, relaxing at home, showering, you name it, ensure that every ounce of care you give yourself is with intention for the month, because that is how you can end the month on the highest note. Aries suns, the Aquarius sun starting at the month will form a sextile to your sign, at least by sign, which means the first half of the month is designed to stoke your energy, your vitality, but likely through social connection rather than solo action. And then the full moon on the 1st could bring a passion project to a boiling point for you, but the square to Uranus to the sun on the 15th might make you feel restless about your resources, almost like you want to impulse buy a new life. And you are likely feeling visionary right now, surrounded by people who get it, but the struggle can be impatience because you have the vision, but you want the result now. And when the timing doesn't line up, you could feel scattered. And so when the sun shifts into Pisces on the 18th, your energy moves from go to more flow, really dampening the fire as you enter an introspective period. And so this could feel confusing for your direct nature since you're being asked to surrender to the process rather than to lead it. Taurus suns. The Aquarius sun creates a square to your natal sun, really generating a friction called action through tension. And so you could feel like the world is moving too fast and demanding you change your methods before you're ready. And then the square to Uranus to the sun, which is currently in your sign on the 15th, is the peak of this, serving as a cosmic demand to break a habit that has really kept you a little bit too comfortable. And because you can't get comfortable, you could be forced to move, which means you could get more done this month than in the last three combined, which is great. But the stress could cause you to really, dig your heels in and refuse to change, which would only lower your confidence. And you could be fighting the current until relief arrives for you on the 18th when the sun enters Pisces. And so the tension melts more into intuition. And then by the 27th, your values may finally align with where you are meant to be going. Gemini Sun, you are in your element for the first half of the month as the Aquarius Sun forms a trine to yours, at least by sign, really stabilizing your often scattered frequency and acting as a battery charger for your life force. You'll likely feel clearer, sharper, and more seen, especially with the full moon on the 1st, lighting up, how you communicate a little bit. And so the motivation here is intellectual power, but the struggle is that you could live entirely in your head, really becoming so enamored with an idea that you forget the human element, and you could accidentally hurt feelings at some point by prioritizing truth over empathy. But the vibe will change sharply on the 18th when the sun moves into Pisces, creating a square to your sun by sign that could turn, the clarity of air into the fog of water. So you could feel like your logic is slipping or your words are getting lost in translation. And this is just challenging you to stop thinking and to start feeling, which can be uncomfortable, but your intuition will be the guide for you this month. Cancer suns, Aquarius energy could create a detached, cerebral vibe that forms a quincunx to your sign, at least by sign or in conjunction. So your ego could feel a little bit left out in the cold during the first 2 weeks of the month. And so you could crave connection actually, but the world is likely offering networking, which isn't really personal, if that makes sense. And then the square between the sun and Uranus on the 15th could make people around you seem a little bit erratic, really triggering your need to retreat into your shell for safety. And so while this transit allows you to look at your life objectively without the fog of emotion, you could struggle with feeling alienated or like your sensitivity is a weakness in a world favoring cold facts. And your vitality could dip if you try to force connections that aren't there. But hold on until the 18th when the sun enters Pisces and forms a beautiful trine to your sun, at least by sign, because your emotional batteries could recharge and the world could feel a little bit safer. And then by the 27th, you could feel completely at home in the universe again, at least home enough to really, have a chance to build up your confidence. Leo sun, the sun is sitting directly across the sky from you. You're having a sun opposition, really creating a polarity that can feel like a drain on your physical energy because the spotlight is shining on you rather than radiating from you. And, this is something that a lot of Leos misunderstand. We like to be ourselves, but when other people are looking at us, we can kind of be like, huh? But the full moon on the 1st is kind of like your annual peak of release because it's happening in your sign. But with planets opposing your sun, you could feel the need to dominate the room just to compensate for feeling drained. I get this too. And the motivation comes from partnership. So you can achieve way more by pairing up this month, but the struggle is reactivity. You could feel like people are coming at you or like you're constantly compromising to keep the peace, which means that your batteries could drain faster than they can charge. And then the shift happens on the 18th when the sun moves into Pisces. So your energy could become a little bit less confrontational and move your spotlight to the backstage, really requiring you to adjust your ego to fit into a more collective vibe. So just go with the flow by the end of the month and your confidence can still stay strong. Virgo Sun, Aquarius season forms a quincunx to your sign, at least by sign, which is an aspect of awkward adjustment. So your ego could feel a little bit, unstable, or your confidence can, at the very least, as if your standard operating procedures aren't producing the usual results. And the square to Uranus from the Sun on the 15th is a little bit tricky for your nervous system. Maybe sudden changes are likely, and your vitality could drain from trying to plug all the leaks in the dam, and you are being pushed to improvise, which forces flexibility. But if you measure your worth by how under control things are, you could feel a little bit anxious or like you're failing. And you have to change the metric of success to adaptability, because on the 18th, when the Sun moves into Pisces, your opposite sign, you will have this shift in focus entirely from doing instead to being with, because this challenges your desire for control by asking you to trust in the chaos of, connection, partnership, collaboration. You're going to have to start to trust outside people at the end of the month rather than trying to fix people. And if you can surrender to this flow, this could be a very productive month for you. Libra Suns, you are receiving a highly supportive trine from the Aquarius Sun, at least by sign. So this could be a fantastic month for your energy or your vitality, where you feel lighter, more sociable, or more intellectually stimulated. And then the solar eclipse on the 17th acts like a supercharged new moon for your creative self-expression. And things might just work out for you right now, whether it's your charm, your connections, or maybe just like whatever it is you're going after in life. It could seem like things come a little bit easier. However, because you don't have a high fight for your vitality, I'm a Libra Sun too. Remember, the Sun does not always like being in Libra, so you could easily slide into laziness or coasting, and you could feel good but achieve nothing of substance. And the energy could shift from clear to a little bit more nebulous on the 18th when the Sun enters Pisces, making it harder to make decisions because facts could be obscured by, confusion or feelings at this time, and your body could suddenly demand a routine or a detox after the social high. And so try to use the earlier part of the month to flirt with your future while the magnetic shine is at its peak, so that you can use the end of the month to really recharge and go with the flow. Scorpio Suns, the Aquarius Sun forms a square to your Sun, at least by sign, creating a little bit of friction where your deep private nature could feel pressurized by public demands or like this, detached energy at the very least. And so you might feel forced to participate in groupthink that you fundamentally disagree with. And the square to Uranus from the Sun on the 15th could target your sense of control, maybe triggering a sudden urge to sever a tie in your life, no matter what that tie is. And while this pressure can help you, find your spine, the struggle could manifest as defensiveness. And you could, maybe waste your energy building up walls against people or things that aren't actually attacking you. And you could feel othered or misunderstood until the release comes on the 18th when the Sun enters Pisces and forms a trine to your sign. And so the depth you crave could return, and the Sun meeting the North Node on the 27th could really unlock a very deep spiritual insight. Pay attention to that date, mark it on your calendar, and it could remind you that your confidence comes from being the anchor while everybody else skims the surface. And really embrace this idea this month, and you can achieve whatever it is you set your mind to. Sagittarius Sun, the Aquarius Sun kind of acts as a fan for your natural fire, creating like this high vitality time where you could feel optimistic, supported, and ready to expand, especially since the full moon on the 1st harmonizes with your sign because it is in Leo. And this could help you have this main character energy. And so you will likely be at the busiest, point at the beginning of the month, but the struggle here is scattered energy. And so the good vibes are so abundant, or they could be so abundant, that you could lack focus and burn through your vitality by overcommitting to ideas that go nowhere. And plus, the eclipse on the 17th adds a static to the line, so miscommunication is highly likely. And then the vibe could get heavier on the 18th when the Sun moves into Pisces, creating friction that could make you feel like your fire is being dampened by emotion or confusion. And you might go from being the life of the party to wanting to stay home at least more than normal. And so try to hype yourself up early in the month with a big vision, even if there is some downsides, maybe due to other parts of your chart, and just keep the receipts in case details get messy so that you can get through the month unscathed. Capricorn Sun, since you have just exited your season, you are naturally in a phase of gathering resources or trying to build your confidence. But while you usually respect structural Aquarius energy, the square from the Sun to Uranus on the 15th could disrupt the plan and could poke at your sense of stability. And you might be asked to innovate how you view security, which could mean dealing with unexpected expenses or a sudden shift in how you earn respect. And the tension is a double edged sword. So, on one hand, the unpredictability could force you to be a genius and find smarter ways to build. But on the other, you could feel a deep sense of insecurity in your confidence. And this is something that is usually built on having a plan. And so you're being challenged to find confidence and adaptability rather than predictability this month. But fortunately for you, the energy will soften beautifully on the 18th once we start Pisces season, because this does sextile to your earthly nature, really dissolving the rigid tension into intuition and allowing you to move from calculating survival to really sensing the path, which can help you to actually thrive if you surrender to this Pisces flow. Aquarius Sun, happy birthday season, unless your birthday was in January, and then happy late birthday. And this might not be, as peaceful of a solar return that you're used to, but this can be a good thing. It could be like exciting in a good way, because the solar eclipse in your sign on the 17th and the sun squaring with Uranus on the 15th, your ego is going to be plugged into a very high voltage outlet. And so you could feel buzzing, anxious, or restless, as if your skin is too tight for the person you're becoming. There will be a lot of changes happening for you this month. And the goal here is liberation. And you kind of have cosmic permission to shatter any labels that feel suffocating. But the line between breaking free and self-destructing could be thin right now. And so you could make mistakes, or you could, mistake simple boredom for a need to burn everything down. And then when the sun leaves your sign for Pisces on the 18th, that electrical humming could die down a little bit, and you move into a phase of resource assessment where the focus can shift from who you are to what you value. And this slowdown is necessary to integrate the massive changes in your life, even if it feels like a crash after the adrenaline. So try to anchor your confidence into your authenticity throughout the month, and that is how you will, make the most of the energy. Pisces suns. For the first 2 weeks, the sun will be in Aquarius, which is the sign right before yours, which places your ego kind of in the waiting room of the 12th house, meaning your physical energy or your vitality could feel like it's on power save mode, and you are essentially incubating. And then, as the solar eclipse on the 17th hits your blind spot, it's going to be hitting in the sign right before yours. This could create a sense of psychological pressure or vivid dreaming where you feel a little bit detached from the actual events happening. And so there is a fine line here between healthy solitude and unhealthy isolation. And so while you have the rare ability to observe the chaos without getting sucked in, you could also feel very invisible or sluggish, like you're trying to run underwater. But the shift is so drastic on the 18th when the sun enters your sign and turns the lights on. You will feel, very high energy for a lot of the month, because there is going to be a Pisces stellium, and you will kind of go from the background to the foreground instantly. And with the sun meeting the north node on the 27th, this is kind of where, the fog may start to lift for you, at least in some ways. And so trust the timing and don't judge your worth by your productivity early in the month, because your confidence will come from resting so that you can really take on the abundance of energy that is happening, especially now that Saturn is leaving your sign. And this is kind of your month to get your stuff together and to really move forward in a new direction. Aries Moon, the Leo full moon, kind of lights up your need for emotional autonomy. And since you are a fellow fire element, you could feel a surge of emotional abundance or a desire to actually do something with your feelings rather than just sitting in them. But here's the friction, because you could feel frustrated if everyone else seems too cool or detached while you're feeling more passionate, because you want to move and maybe others want to think. And the Aquarius eclipse can challenge you to innovate your emotional responses. So if you usually react with heat, the energy really asks you to step back and observe the pattern instead. And so it really is a lesson mastering your impulse. Physical movement can be your best regulator this month. And so when that head versus heart tension rises, try burning off the excess cortisol through exercise, or, through at least letting your feelings out authentically, even with yourself, before you try to communicate it to something else. Taurus moons, this could be a significant month for your fixed natures because the Leo full moon creates a dynamic tension that could feel like an internal pressure cooker where you could feel pushed to express your feelings, the ones especially that you would rather keep private. And your sense of safety usually comes from stability, but the Aquarius eclipse this month as well suggests that your emotional comfort zone could be undergoing a renovation. You might feel a little bit unrooted, as if the usual routines aren't providing the same soothing effect. And this can feel like a threat, but it really is just a nudge to find your safety and adaptability rather than rigidity. And sensory grounding is absolutely essential right now. So lean on somatic practices, weighted blankets, or whatever, engages your five senses that really brings you calmness to help, remind you that you're safe, even if the atmosphere feels electric. Gemini Moon, the air energy of February is generally harmonizing for you, really allowing you to breathe a bit easier. But the Leo full moon really invites you to speak your emotional truth with flair. And while you often intellectualize feelings to feel safe, the current energy might actually encourage that. And so there is a risk that you somehow, talk about your feelings rather than just actually feeling them. And then the Aquarius eclipse offers this mental system reboot where you could find yourself suddenly dropping an old emotional narrative that you've repeated for years. Trust that insight. It can be a chance to clear out the mental clutter. So, journaling or voice noting, as cliche as it sounds, could be crucial right now. Getting those swirling thoughts out of your head and into a tangible format to prevent mental loops. Cancer moons, the Leo full moon happens right next door to your sign, which can sometimes feel like your emotions are being put under a spotlight that you didn't even ask for. You could feel a heightened sensitivity to whether your needs are being seen, leading to you feeling extra vulnerable at certain parts of the month. And the planetary tension could make you feel like the world is moving too fast or too impersonally for your liking. But this discomfort is pushing you towards growth because the Aquarius eclipse asks you to detach from a sentimental holding pattern that you may have outgrown. It is a challenge to find safety in the future rather than with the past. And so, water immersion could be your best fix here. So, try baths or even swimming to wash away the static and return to your center whenever you feel thrown off this month. Leo moons, this can be your annual emotional high tide because with the full moon in your sign, it is actually in my sign too. I'm a Leo moon and it is pretty much exactly conjunct my moon. Your internal world is going to feel vivid and loud, and your sense of safety relies on being allowed to express that without judgment. However, the surrounding energy kind of provides a necessary check and balance for you, asking you to ensure that your output considers the room and not just the self. So you could feel restricted by the coolness of others, but this could be a teaching moment to help you refine your output. And then the eclipse this month really signals a reset in how you relate to others, shedding the need for constant validation to find a more self sustained confidence. So channel this intensity into creative expression, art, performance, or just dressing up. Hype yourself up in some way to let the emotion move through you creatively rather than interpersonally. Virgo moon, the Leo full moon kind of falls in a blind spot for you, which can stir up subconscious feelings or anxieties that are hard to pin down with your usual logic. And so you could feel a vague, nagging sense of unease, which can be frustrating for a mind that likes clear answers. And then the tension highlights a conflict between your desire for order and the chaotic nature of current events, but this confusion could be an invitation. The Aquarius eclipse this month also pushes you to change your routine of emotional processing because if you usually overanalyze to feel safe, try trusting your intuition instead. And you are finding that safety in the ability to really flow with imperfection. So, decluttering or organizing a space can be effective right now to provide the tangible order that your inner world is craving during the chaos of the month. And this is how you can keep yourself rooted. Libra moon, the emotional weather this month can be stimulating but potentially draining for your equilibrium. So the Leo full moon lights up, how you relate in some ways, whether it's with your environment, with other people, which could make you feel safe when you are connected to something you enjoy. But social harmony could be hard to come by this month, so people could become more combative than normal or detached than normal. And the Aquarius eclipse will kind of support your intellect, but could temporarily obscure your ability to balance the scales, really teaching you that emotional safety sometimes requires taking a side. And so the discomfort and disharmony is really forcing you to find stability within yourself rather on relying on external, sources of stability. So try parallel play, maybe being in presence of others without necessarily interacting deeply to really satisfy your need for connection without the drain. Scorpio moon, this could be a potent month that creates a high tension environment for you because the Leo full moon demands action, placing you in a conflict between your intense need for privacy and a situation that could require, emotional visibility or vulnerability. So your sense of safety, it's often tied to control, but the Aquarius eclipse is kind of going to disrupt that. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. It just asks you to surrender to a flow you can't predict. And while this loss of control could feel terrifying, it could be the key to your freedom because the pressure is building to help break open an emotional dam that you've been guarding. So the release could be intense, but it will be lighter. So try deep tissue massages or intense physical exertion. And this could be crucial to release that stored tension in your body as your emotions tend to get trapped in your muscles. And this is how you can make it out of the month with your sanity intact. Sagittarius moon, the Leo full moon can boost your natural optimism, and you could feel a strong sense of safety when you are expanding or debating big ideas. But there could be a catch because while you are ready for a grand adventure, those around you could be stuck in maybe details or political squabbles. And this can feel stifling for you, like your wings are being clipped by the mundane. And the Aquarius eclipse will stimulate your mind, though, really asking you to look at these frustrations from a bird's eye view. And instead of being dragged down by the smallness of the movement, try to detach and to see the why behind your feelings. So if you feel stuck, try to change your environment, even if it's just a walk in a new park, because this can truly reset your perspective and help you get the most out of this energy. And trust me when I say this energy could change you in ways that you can't even imagine. Capricorn moons, this Leo full moon could feel a little bit dramatic for your taste. It could highlight feelings that you usually prefer to manage privately. Maybe you feel a distinct heaviness or a sense of being the adult in a room who carries the burden while others get to act out. However, this contrast could be trying to teach you something about the weight you carry or the confidence that you hold in yourself emotionally. And so the Aquarius eclipse may trigger a reset in your self worth, really shifting you away from finding safety solely and how you can manage your energy and allowing that vulnerability to shine out just to prove that you can be safe even when things are unpredictable. And you can learn that you do not need to earn your emotional security in any way. So treat time management as self-care this month, really blocking out non-negotiable solitude in your calendar because this will help you relax by giving you a structured end to the social demands of the month. Aquarius moons, you could feel like the epicenter of this month's energy, which brings both intense visibility and maybe even a feeling of vulnerability. And so the Leo full moon happens in the sign opposite of yours, illuminating the stark contrast between your inner world, which, craves to, process things on a big and humane level, and the external demand for passion and letting your passion, be the thing that dominates your life. So you could feel emotionally exposed as if the world is demanding a reaction you aren't ready to give. Yet the solar eclipse landing directly in the sign of your moon can be a massive personal reset. And you could feel like you are rebooting, where old emotional triggers suddenly stop working. It could be disorienting, but it can also be so liberating. And because your nervous system could be buzzing, focus on breath work this month. Look up YouTube videos on breath work. Those have saved my life. But this can signal safety to your body, especially this month, so that you can leave the month not only emotionally surviving, but thriving. Pisces moon, the Leo full moon can feel a little bit harsh to your sensitive nature, or it could feel, like a lot at the very least, creating a sharp contrast between the harsh battles of the outside world and your need for soft boundaries. You're a sponge, and so you could feel an urgent need to retreat into your shell and to protect your energy from the noise and to, work on your confidence within that because that is, what Leo kind of brings. However, this friction could highlight exactly where your boundaries have become too porous because The Aquarius eclipse brings this process to a head in the deep waters of your subconscious. And so there could be a clearing out of the emotional closet this month for your dreams and your fears. And while it may feel a little bit unsettling, deep internal shifts could be happening, and it is your job to ensure they happen for the best. And so allow yourself extra rest this month because you are processing is happening on full drive, and it happens, when you are in the dream state and when you are allowed to relax. And so prioritize your rest this month so that you can come out of the month thriving. Aries Mercury, your mental engine usually runs on direct, instinctual, and fast paced fuel, and you generally prefer A to B communication without too much fluff. However, Mercury in Pisces introduces a fog that could feel frustratingly slow or indirect to you, like you're trying to run underwater, and you could find that your usual directness lands softer than intended, or that others seem to be speaking in riddles when you just want the facts. And the North Node conjunction to Mercury invites you to pause your instinct to react and instead try to sense the room before you speak. And so when the retrograde hits, you could feel like your forward momentum is stalled mentally, but this isn't a block, it's a detour. So use this time to refine your gut instincts. And if you can't charge ahead, just look around and take in your environment. Taurus Mercury, you really value steady, methodical, and practical thoughts, and you like ideas that you can actually build something on and hold in your hands. But the Pisces energy could be very formless and fluid, which can feel a little bit destabilizing to your need for mental grounding. And so, your challenge this month is going to be flexibility. You may find that rigid plans or fixed opinions simply don't hold up against the shifting tides of February, and trying to force them will just be exhausting. And then the North Node conjunct Mercury this month suggests that your greatest insights could come when you loosen your grip on how it's always been done. And so, also during the Mercury retrograde this month, take some time to review your values. Are you holding onto a mindset that is very familiar to you and you're only doing it because it's familiar? And allow your thoughts to meander a bit because there's actually some productivity that can come from daydreaming right now. Gemini Mercury, you are the investigator, usually governed by facts, data, and curiosity. And so Mercury in Pisces can be a little bit difficult for you because it asks you to trade knowing for feeling, and that's not always comfortable for your brain. And so you could feel a bit like a radio picking up static, where the details you usually rely on could be obscured or confusing. And this is really a wake up call to develop your emotional intelligence rather than just your intellect. And instead of asking, is this true? Try asking, does this resonate? And so, this retrograde as well this month could scramble your usual schedules or your communications. And so, instead of trying to outthink the confusion, lean into creative writing or music or nonverbal communication more than you normally would, and give your analytical mind a rest because it can handle the break. Cancer Mercury, since you already think through a lens of intuition and emotional retention, the transit of Mercury entering Pisces can feel like a total homecoming for your mind, and you will likely feel more understood and articulate than usual, like the rest of the world is finally speaking your language, and your ability to pick up on nonverbal cues is heightened significantly, especially around the 12th. And you aren't just hearing words at this time, you can maybe potentially hear the emotional history behind them, meaning this could be a powerful time for deep and empathetic conversations if that resonates. And so, this retrograde, as well with Mercury going in retrograde, can trigger some nostalgia loops for you. And you typically have a great memory with this placement, but also ensure you aren't rewriting history in your head to be better or worse than it actually was. And so, use the reflection of this Mercury retrograde to process the past, not just to live in it. Leo Mercury, you usually communicate with warmth, maybe creativity and authority. You like your words to land with impact and to be seen. And Pisces energy could diffuse this with Mercury and Pisces this month, turning that bright spotlight kind of into a soft candlelight. And your creativity is also getting a massive boost, but your clarity could suffer a little bit. And you may think you are being clear, but others could perceive maybe what you say or your thoughts as vague or overly idealistic. And then the North North Node conjunct Mercury this month will invite you to listen as much as you speak, taking in the audience rather than just projecting to them. But also during the Mercury retrograde later in the month, it's a good time to review your creative projects. And so if you feel misunderstood, don't just speak louder, try to speak with more vulnerability. It is less about the show of communication and more about the soul of it, which can be even more impactful. Virgo Mercury, this is your opposition month with, Pisces Mercury opposing Virgo Mercury. And honestly, this can be tricky, but it could be a great time as well because you naturally organize, categorize, and analyze. But Mercury in Pisces dissolves categories and makes things a little bit, unclear in some ways. It makes it more intuitive, and you may feel like you're trying to hold water in your hands, if that makes sense. And so this could be a high friction month if you fight it, and you could feel brain fog or frustration that details are slipping through the cracks. And the balance here this month is learning that not everything needs to be dissected to be understood. Sometimes the gist and the intuition is enough. And so when Mercury goes retrograde later in the month, double check your work, but also give yourself permission to be imperfect. And your detailed mind needs a little break. I relate to this. I'm a Virgo Mercury. I'm already starting to feel a little bit of burnout, and let the edges of, what you analyze blur a little because it won't destroy your world. Trust me. Libra Mercury, you tend to filter information through the lens of balance, fairness, and the other. However, Pisces energy kind of blurs the boundaries between you and others, which can make your decisive making process, which is weighing the scales, feel a little bit more overwhelming than normal. And you may find yourself absorbing the opinions and mental states of those around you more than usual. And so the challenge really becomes distinguishing your own thoughts from the collective noise. And then the North Node conjuncting with Mercury this month invites you to find a spiritual or emotional equilibrium rather than just a logical one. And so during the Mercury retrograde at the end of the month, if you do feel indecisive, do not ask for advice because your tendency to poll the room won't necessarily help when the room is also confused. And so go inward because silence can be your best filter, especially towards the end of the month. Scorpio Mercury, you are the detective of the zodiac, always looking beneath the surface, and Mercury in Pisces supports this deep diving perfectly. And the waters can get murky, but you are comfortable swimming in the dark. Your intuition as well could be razor sharp this month, and you will likely sense secrets or subtext before they are even spoken. However, with the North Node involved, be wary of paranoia and ensure that your suspicions are based on actual intuition, not just fear or past trauma rearing its head. But also with Mercury retrograde at the end of the month, it is a prime time for psychological review. And this could be a great period for therapy or journaling. And also try to re-examine the stories you tell yourself about trust and betrayal just to see what still holds true versus what is holding you back. Sagittarius Mercury, you are the philosopher, thinking in broad strokes, and you're very big picture thinking. And Pisces shares your love for the expansive. They're both ruled by Jupiter, but it kind of lacks your fire. And so with Mercury and Pisces this month, you could feel enthusiastic, but strangely directionless, like you don't know where to go. Maybe your mind wants to roam, and this transit allows for massive imaginative expansion. However, you could struggle with the practical steps to make those big ideas real. And so the square between your sign and Pisces creates kind of this tension between belief and delusion. And so try to keep one foot on the ground at all times, no matter what it is you're thinking about. But also when Mercury goes retrograde at the end of the month, it's a good time to review your beliefs. Have you been overly optimistic about a situation? Because this retrograde will tell you if your grand plans they actually have weight. It's not to cancel your plans, but to ensure that they actually resonate with your soul. Capricorn Mercury, you have a very practical executive mind, and you usually look for the return of investment in your conversations. And Mercury in Pisces is kind of the antithesis of this. It's very dreamy, non-linear, and doesn't care about efficiency. And so you could feel a little bit impatient with the lack of structure around you, and people may seem flaky or emotional, at least a little bit more than normal. So, your lesson for the month is to realize that empathy is a valid form of data and to really, be mentally cognizant of that because you do probably have it in you. And so, you can't really organize your way through February. You have to kind of feel your way through it. And so, during the retrograde at the end of the month, especially, you could also find that your rigid structures in life, maybe your schedule, your mindset, or your 5-year plans, whatever resonates with you, maybe these need to be revisited. And so if a plan isn't working, do not force it. Let it dissolve so a better structure can emerge later. Aquarius Mercury, you are the innovator. You're very capable of detached, objective observation. And Pisces energy could force you to merge, asking you to drop that outside looking in perspective and to actually, stick your toes in the water. And so your brilliant lightning bolt ideas could be softened, and you might find yourself thinking more about the human condition and suffering than just the abstract concepts of technology. And so this is a bridge between your intellect and your compassion, connecting your head to your heart. And so at the end of the month, when Mercury goes retrograde, this could also make your usual clear headedness feel a little bit cloudy. And I would use this time to revisit old ideas that you once discarded because they weren't logical, because they can have the emotional resonance you need right now. And maybe, just maybe later on, especially with the eclipse in Aquarius this month, you'll realize what to do with those dreams that you once thought weren't possible. Pisces Mercury, this is your Mercury return. And so the energy can feel very native to you. It's like you're finally back in your element and your natural way of thinking, which could be visual, poetic, intuitive. It's very amplified. And you're kind of the main character of this mental landscape, and your intuition is functioning at high bandwidth. However, with the North Node and the Mercury retrograde also occurring in your sign, the danger could be getting lost in your own world. And it could be very hard to explain your thoughts to others right now because they feel so internal. And so when Mercury does go retrograde in your sign, you are essentially rebooting your entire mental operating system. And so do not pressure yourself to be linear. Write down your dreams, paint your feelings, play a song that kind of resonates with your mood right now, and accept that you're kind of in a cocoon phase of your life. There's a lot of planets in your sign, so your thoughts are going to be very, clear. And clarity can come later, but for now, enjoy the mystery and really lean into what your intuition is telling you. Venus and Aries, you are instinctual and direct in love and with your passion. You value the chase, but as Venus moves into Pisces, your energy is going to become far more subtle than you prefer. And so you could feel a bit like you are trying to box with a ghost, if that makes sense. So your usual direct actions might not land with the impact you expect. And so the lesson here will be to soften your approach. The square between Venus and Uranus could also trigger a sudden desire to break free from a stagnant routine. But the move into Pisces with Venus asks you to surrender the need to win in love. And so also creativity will flow best when you stop trying to force the outcome and you let your intuition lead the way. Venus and Taurus, you are steady and grounded in your values, but with the square to Uranus between Venus and Uranus this month, and Uranus is in your sign, by the way, but you probably knew that. This will kind of act as a cosmic wake up call, really shaking up your usual stability. So you could find that your tastes are changing overnight, or you may feel a sudden need to revolutionize how you earn money, or how you express your passions, or how you experience love. And then as Venus enters Pisces, this will be a more harmonious shift because Pisces provides the water to your earth, really allowing your rigid values to become more fluid. And it's going to be an excellent time for creative projects as you can now give form to the ethereal. And so anything that you love can feel less about possession at this time and more about shared understanding. That is the goal for the month. Venus and Gemini, you are clever and value intellectual stimulation, but Venus and Pisces this month will operate on a nonverbal frequency, which can be initially confusing. You may want to talk it out while Pisces wants to feel it out, and this transit is going to challenge you to listen to what isn't being said or, what is lacking with your passion. And the North Node conjunction to Venus could pull you towards maybe connections or ideals or maybe like creative pursuits that defy logical explanation. And so your challenge will be to quiet the mental chatter and allow yourself to drift into the emotional experience without trying to analyze it. And so it can be a powerful time to channel your words into poetry or art. And so really tap into your intuition, throughout the month to get the best result. Venus in Cancer, you are naturally intuitive and driven by a need for safety, and Venus in Pisces this month is going to create a seamless flow of energy for you. You can feel deeply understood during this time, and your capacity for empathy will be heightened. The danger, however, will be dissolving your boundaries entirely and absorbing the emotions of everybody around you. And the Uranus square to Venus could also bring a sudden shift, maybe in your social circle, but it clears the way for the deep connections that you may crave. And so use this time to nurture your spirit. Your ability to channel emotion into maybe art or creativity will be at its peak. And so channel your energy in directions that really call to your soul. Venus and Leo, you are expressive and you value being seen, but with Venus and Pisces, this will be a very different energy. It is very selfless and often operates in the shadows. And so you could feel like your grand gestures are met with confusing subtlety, like maybe your passions or your love expressions aren't being received as you thought they would be. And this transit is going to ask you to find value in the quiet moments and the sacrifices that go unnoticed. But also with the North Node conjunction to Venus, this kind of invites you to expand your definition of love from personal adoration to universal compassion. And it will be less about how you shine individually and more about how your warmth can actually dissolve suffering. And so try to offer your light without needing the applause and really surrender to the flow of what the Venus and Pisces transit is calling you to go towards this month. Venus and Virgo, you usually value practical application and the details, but Venus and Pisces will sit directly opposite your placement, serving as your energetic counterbalance. And so while you seek to categorize, Pisces seeks to flow, which can be a challenging but incredibly expansive time for you. And so you are going to be asked to release your grip on perfection and embrace the chaotic beauty of connection. And the Uranus square to Venus as well could disrupt your carefully planned routines, really forcing you to improvise. And so in romance or creativity, do not try to analyze the brush strokes and really just let yourself experience the whole painting throughout the month. Venus and Libra, you are the diplomat who values balance, but Venus and Pisces is going to add a layer of depth and confusion to your usual clear-cut scales. And so you could find that fairness is harder to define when emotions are running high and boundaries are blurry. And then the North Node conjunction to Venus could push you to look beyond the polite surface of how you bond with others and to dive into the messy undercurrents of what the energy actually looks like. And so it's going to be a time where maybe aesthetic beauty or harmony matters less than the vibe or the soul of whatever it is that you're doing. And so your creative taste or your romance could also shift from the symmetrical and polished to more surreal and emotionally raw energy. And that is what you kind of have to embrace this month if you want to really, make the most of this energy. Venus and Scorpio, you are very deep and crave intense bonding. And since Venus is in Pisces this month, which is a fellow water sign, this energy is going to resonate with your desire for depth. However, it will lack your usual edge of suspicion because Pisces is very open, where you could be a little bit guarded. And so the invitation will be to let your guard down without the fear of betrayal. And then the Uranus square to Venus this month as well could trigger a sudden realization about maybe a partnership or a passion project. But the Pisces ingress kind of offers a healing balm for you, and it allows you to transmute your intense passions into something higher. And so romance or creativity could become a little bit more of a spiritual merger rather than a power dynamic throughout the month. Venus and Sagittarius, you are naturally optimistic and value freedom. And since Venus in Pisces shares your traditional ruler of Jupiter, there will be a kinship here in the desire for meaning. However, while you usually seek truth through external exploration, Pisces will seek it through internal feeling. And so this transit is going to ask you to travel inward when it comes to your passions. And then the North Node conjunction to Venus could suggest that your next great adventure in love or creativity isn't found maybe in a new location or pursuit, but in a new level of emotional vulnerability. And so this will be a time to explore the vastness of your own empathy. And if you do that this month, you can make the most of the energy. Venus and Capricorn, you are usually practical and value maybe relationships or passion projects that provide security, but Venus in Pisces could act as a softening agent for your structures. And so you could find that your usual business like approach to relationships or creative processes may not work as they usually do. Maybe people could seem to need your compassion more, not your strategy. And also, the Uranus square to Venus can suggest a sudden shakeup in what you thought was a secure, relationship or investment, whether it's emotional or financial, really prompting you to value the intangible over the material this month. And so you can allow yourself to be a little bit less productive this month and more poetic. And there will be a lot of strength in softness during this time. Venus and Aquarius, you generally value independence and breaking the mold. And as the month starts, Venus will highlight those unique tastes. But as Venus moves into Pisces, the energy is going to shift from we are individuals to we are all one. And this could feel suffocating if you resist, or really freeing if you know how to embrace it. And the square to Venus from Uranus, which is your modern ruler, could cause you to abruptly detach from a situation that feels heavy. But the lesson will be to try to, stay present with the emotion. And so this is the time to learn that empathy doesn't mean losing your freedom. It just means expanding your humanity so you can find what actually brings you joy. Venus and Pisces, since this will be your Venus return this month, you are going to be in your element. You're very naturally a sponge for energy with a Venus and Pisces. And so with Venus exalted here, your magnetic power could be amplified. And then the North Node conjunction to Venus in your sign kind of signals what could be a fated time, really aligning you with a destiny maybe related to your values or creativity or love. So pay attention to what calls at you. However, the challenge here will be grounding because with so much ethereal energy, there's a Pisces stellium this month. You could easily get lost in a fantasy or idealize a situation that isn't totally real. And then the Uranus square to Venus will serve as a reminder to keep one foot in reality even as you dream. But also, your creativity and your love can be your greatest anchor to manifest those visions into the material world. And this is a great opportunity you have this month. Aries Mars in Aquarius this month brings a supportive boost to your natural energy, really inviting you to strategize and collaborate. And while your drive is usually instinctual, energy levels are consistent now when bouncing ideas off of others rather than seeking personal victory. And the full moon in Leo on the 1st will highlight a tension between creative desires and maybe like what you want to contribute to the world in some way, but you are well positioned to integrate them. And later, the influence of Uranus suggests your usual physical outlets could feel stale. Maybe your nervous system craves novelty at this time. And so try incorporating technology or new methodologies into workouts or into, diffusing your energy. And if a sense of restlessness hits, innovate your routine and refuel through maybe group activities where your leadership can shine. Taurus Mars, I would prepare for a little bit of friction as Mars in Aquarius creates a challenging clash with your natal Mars, at least by sign, which demands a chaotic pace, kind of compared to your steady rhythm. And then the energy from Uranus on the 27th is significant, but it is a chance to really change your life and to catalyze change because this could trigger an urge to break free. But you could also feel frustration with disruptions, and it is up to you on how you really handle that because flexibility is key. Digging in your heels will only lead to exhaustion. So exert yourself this month in short, focused bursts rather than marathons. And when the mental buzz becomes a little bit too loud, refuel by grounding yourself in sensory experiences. Whatever calms your nervous system down, this is what you should tune into this month if you want to make the most of your energy. Gemini Mars in Aquarius this month flows harmoniously with your natal Mars, at least by sign, really supercharging your mental acuity and stabilizing your scattered energy for long-term innovation. And while the full moon in Leo pulls focus maybe towards your relationships or towards fun, you have the dexterity to handle it. And your energy is high but cerebral, potentially leading to mental exhaustion while your body remains restless. So exert yourself through maybe debate or learning new systems. And when Eureka moments arrive from the Uranus connection on the 27th, really refuel by turning the brain off and engaging in mindless movement like walking or, doing like a workout that's kind of repetitive or doing anything repetitive to prevent burnout in your life. Cancer Mars this month kind of requires adjustment as Mars creates a disconnect with your natal placement, at least by sign. It's in and in conjunction. And so the transit really demands logic and detachment, really contrasting sharply with your intuitive drive. And the full moon on the first in Leo can heighten this, really making you feel exposed when you just crave retreat. And so don't force yourself to operate like a machine this month because you will crash. Instead, look for the intersection between caring and innovation. Maybe try using technology to protect your peace, for example, and exert yourself in safe environments where possible, and try to refuel by withdrawing to your safe haven to honor your emotional tides whenever you feel pulled to do so. Leo Mars, with Mars transiting across the sky from your sign, it is opposite. You confront drive this month through the mirror of others, and you may feel challenged by external forces, really highlighting the tension between individuals and the power of teamwork. And the full moon on the first kind of stresses this balance, so avoid viewing challenges as personal attacks this month. And the lesson is collaboration, not dominance. So exert yourself by championing a cause or lifting others up where possible, but also watch for the Uranus square to Mars on the 27th, which could bring a conflict if you are rigid, and try to refuel yourself by stepping back and letting other people carry the load for you. Virgo Mars, prepare for a period of adjustment as the abstract nature of Mars and Aquarius clashes with your precision-based drive, and this may cause nervous anxiety as you feel like you are spinning your wheels. And so this is a month to let go of perfect in favor of innovative. Rather than fixing every glitch, zoom out and use your analysis to really solve the structural problems or automate the work in your life. And then with the Uranus connection on the 27th, this could feel messy, so you can try to refuel by disconnecting from high frequency noise and engaging in analog solitary tasks like gardening or crafting or something that really makes you find your center. Libra Mars. Mars in Aquarius harmonizes with your natal Mars, at least by sign, adding an intellectual detachment that helps cut through analysis paralysis. And the full moon on the first in Leo, it makes it a little bit more of a social month for you than normal. Maybe there's a climax in a collaborative project, or maybe there's just a lot of people in your life. You could feel more mentally active, so exert yourself through networking or avant-garde art if that resonates with you. However, the energy could flow so easily that you might not notice fatigue until you hit a wall. And so with the tension with Uranus on the 27th, try to break from social expectations in some way. If you do feel pressure or you feel burnout, evaluate why that could be and try to refuel by finding intellectual stimulation alone to recenter yourself so that you can go into the world ready again. Scorpio Mars, expect high tension as Mars in Aquarius will make a square to your natal Mars, at least by sign. I'm dealing with my square as well. And so your intense private drive will kind of clash with the current loud, chaotic energy of the month, really leaving you frustrated that subtle tactics that you usually do that work aren't working as well. And so the interaction with Uranus to Mars on the 27th could add a little bit of volatility and a compulsion to sever ties with something that drains you. And so resist power struggles this month and instead exert yourself by channeling intensity into complex research or deep focus, and vent pressure physically, maybe through intense and solitary exercise, and refuel by completely disconnecting and reclaiming your privacy so that you can go back into the world once your energy is up, ready again. Mars in Sagittarius. With Mars in Aquarius, this offers a refreshing breeze to your natal Mars because both signs share a love for freedom in the future, and this electric potential helps you to apply your broad visions to concrete frameworks. And the full moon in Leo on the first could culminate travel or educational plans, or maybe you figure out, maybe the next step you want to take in life to expand your horizons. And then energy levels could be robust but a little bit scattered, so maybe try to exert yourself by teaching, publishing, rallying people, or just like learning something that really gives you joy. And the Uranus influence on the 27th does risk impulsivity, so avoid physical risks in favor of intellectual breakthroughs. So like you can work out, like that's okay, but don't if you've never done a workout before, today's not the day to do something new. And then refuel this month with people who challenge you intellectually but don't demand emotional labor, and that's how you can get through the month. Capricorn Mars, as Mars enters the sign after years, your energy shifts from proven paths to immediate innovation. And with Saturn preparing to enter Aries, you must modernize your ambitions. And so try to exert yourself by, auditing how efficient your life is. Streamline where you are doing things the hard way, just because that's the way that you're familiar with. And then the Uranus square on the 27th does warn against rigidity. View disruptions this month as data rather than failure, and use your drive for strategic planning, but also try to refuel this month by acknowledging your achievements, no matter how small. Even if you got up and brushed your teeth, acknowledge that and acknowledge them privately and quiet. And so when you do this, it can help you refuel so that when you do go back in the world, you'll be ready. Aquarius Mars. Mars returns to your sign, acting as an energetic new year and revitalizing, your energy. And you are kind of like lightning at this time, but you could be a little bit scattered as well. And you're very capable of initiating massive change. But the friction with Uranus making a square to Mars later in the month, it warns against short circuiting. But also, the full moon on the first will highlight relationships for you. So ensure your drive doesn't steamroll other people or you don't let other people steamroll you. But also try to exert yourself through high intensity activities or launches this month. But be wary of this crash coming at the end potentially, because the peak intensity on the 27th can lead to, maybe you exerting yourself a little bit too much if you rush. And so refuel at the end of the month by unplugging and grounding into your physical body so that you can come and use your electric energy to its fullest potential. Pisces Mars, this month is a gestation period for you as Mars moves through your blind spot. It's the sign before yours. And while the collective rushes forward, your fluid drive could feel a little bit out of sync, even though it could feel intense because there is a lot of Pisces planets this month. But this prompts a need for you to process the past, and you will have the resources this month to do so. Trust me. And with Saturn and Neptune emphasizing the end of a cycle, focus on closure rather than aggressive initiation to avoid burnout, and exert yourself maybe through creative acts or spiritual practice or behind the scenes work where you really tap into your intuition. Your intuition will be so strong this month. And then the Uranus square on the 27th to Mars could imply a sudden intuitive insight. This is the time to trust it. Whatever comes up in your body or, your impulse on the 27th, listen to it. But, take your time when enacting it and refuel your body this month with water or music to really soften boundaries and counteract the month's electric tension. Jupiter in Aries, your natural way of experiencing growth is usually instinctual, rapid, and action oriented. However, with the planets heavily concentrated in Pisces and with Jupiter still going through Cancer, the magic for you this month is found in the pause between those impulses. You could feel a little bit like a fire trying to burn underwater, and your usual direct approach to learning or expanding could feel a little bit dampened or diffused. And so, this isn't a blockage, it's a redirection. So, the energy really asks you to soften your ambition and trust that intuition is a valid form of action. And you are learning that you don't always have to take opportunity. Sometimes you can simply attract it by being receptive. Jupiter in Taurus, you generally expand through stability, accumulation, and tangible results. And so the watery energy of February offers a unique kind of nourishment to your earthly nature, much like rain to soil. And so this month, your sense of optimism is likely linked to how safe you feel in the unknown. And while you usually prefer a concrete plan or a path to expansion, the Pisces influence really encourages you to dream a little bigger than what is practically visible right now. And so the growth opportunity here is to let your values shift from what I own to how I feel, really allowing your sense of purpose to be driven by emotional comfort rather than just security. Jupiter in Gemini, learning is your lifeblood, but you typically prefer facts, data, and logic. And so the influx of Pisces energy ruled by Jupiter in Cancer really challenges you to learn through osmosis rather than analysis. And you could find that your usual mental patterns are a little bit foggier or that facts seem less important than the vibe of a situation. And this is a powerful time to expand your mind by trusting nonverbal communication and reading in between the lines. And the magic of life this month isn't found in a book or a conversation, but in the silence and the feelings that words cannot capture. Jupiter in Cancer, with transiting Jupiter currently in your sign, still you are already in a potent period of renewal, but the Pisces activity this month amplifies your natural gifts. And so your ability to grow has always been tied to intuition, care, and emotional intelligence. But this month, the boundary between you and the collective will thin, really allowing you to tap into a deep well of empathy. And the risk of this month is emotional flooding or feeling too much of everything. However, the opportunity is massive because you're learning that your sensitivity is your greatest engine for expansion. So trust your gut instincts completely this month. They are your compass. Jupiter in Leo, you expand through expression, creativity, and being seen. And so the watery internal energy of February adds a layer of soulfulness to your usual radiance. And instead of seeking external applause, you could find that your sense of purpose shifts towards how your creativity heals or connects with others on an emotional level. And so the magic for you is in the vulnerability. It's less about, a performance or what you achieve. It's just about the sentiment behind what you do. And you are learning that true optimism doesn't always have to be loud. Sometimes it is a quiet, steady warmth that reassures those around you. Jupiter in Virgo, your nature is to grow through refinement, details, and helpfulness. And so the Pisces transits this month, however, will introduce a level of chaos or blurriness that could initially feel a little bit uncomfortable. You cannot organize the ocean. And so the lesson for you this month is surrender. And you are being asked to expand your definition of perfection to include the messy, intangible, and spiritual sides of life. And then your optimism will return not when everything is in place, but when you realize that you are safe even when things are undefined. And it's a time to really trust the process without needing to micromanage the outcome. Jupiter in Libra, you find meaning through connection, balance, maybe even mirroring others. And so the heavy emphasis on Pisces and Cancer brings a surge of empathy, maybe to your relationships or even your relationship with yourself, really deepening how you understand harmony. And growth this month comes from dissolving the superficial pleasantries and getting into the real, sometimes messy and emotional undercurrents of your connections and how you connect to life in general. And you could find your optimism is fueled by shared dreams or spiritual bonds this month rather than intellectual agreement. And the magic lies in the emotional resonance you feel with others. Learning that true balance really requires holding space for feelings, not just fairness. Jupiter and Scorpio, the energy this month is actually pretty supportive for you, and you are naturally comfortable in the deep end of life. And the Pisces Cancer influence this month creates a harmonious flow to your style of expansion. And so your growth has always been about transformation and seeing the truth beneath the surface. And so this month, your intuition is razor sharp, and you can uncover magic in places that others fear to look. And your danger is really getting lost in the undertow of your own intensity, but the opportunity is deep healing. And you are learning that you don't always have to fight for power this month because sometimes your depth alone is enough to magnetize exactly what you need. Jupiter in Sagittarius. Jupiter is your ruling planet, and so you feel these shifts very, acutely. And typically you look outward for expansion. Maybe you seek travel, philosophy. You like to broaden your horizons or at least try to be optimistic. However, with the ruler of this energy of Jupiter being in Cancer and with a stellium of planets in Pisces this month, your quest is turning way more inward than usual. It's already been inward, but it will even go deeper. And so the adventure this month is emotional and spiritual rather than physical. And you are learning that the biggest world to explore is your own inner landscape. And so your optimism is recharging not through new external stimuli this month as often, but through a deepening of the connections to who you are, your roots, your spirit, and your emotional core. Jupiter in Capricorn, you expand through structure, discipline, and climbing the mountain. So the fluid, dissolving energy of February could feel like trying to build a castle on sand. And so the lesson here is that rigidity can be brittle. And the month really asks you to integrate intuition into your strategy. And you are learning that your feelings are not a distraction from your goals, but a necessary data point. And the magic happens when you allow your ambition to be guided by compassion and emotional intelligence. And so success this month isn't about how hard you work, but how well you can flow with the changing tides, especially with the Pisces stellium. Jupiter in Aquarius, your path to growth is usually intellectual, innovative, and focused on the collective future. The emotional weight of this month creates a bridge between your mind and your heart, especially with the Pisces stellium happening all throughout the month. And you may find that your detached perspective or your, futuristic perspective is flooded with a lot more empathy than normal, which can be disorienting, but so expansive to your vision. And you are learning to dream not just of a better system, but of a kinder world. And the optimism you experience this month will come from realizing that true innovation requires the understanding of the human spirit, not just sociology, from a textbook level. And it's a time to let your vision be colored by feeling. And so, really embrace all of the fluidity when it comes to your learning experiences that can come to you this month. Jupiter in Pisces, this is a big month for you because you're going to have the North Node, the Sun, the Mercury, and the Venus. I don't know why I said but anyways, all of them will be moving through Pisces this month. And so your natural mode of being dreamy, intuitive, and boundless is very highlighted this month. And because your ruling planet of Jupiter is also exalted in Cancer at the same time, you are incredibly supported in finding safety within your sensitivity. And the magic is everywhere for you right now. Synchronicities and flowing, states might be coming to you a lot. And the challenge for the month is really staying tethered enough to function in the mundane world. And so your expansion comes from trusting your imagination as a valid reality and using your immense capacity for belief to manifest the life that you've been dreaming of. Saturn and Aries, welcome to the club. This is a pivotal moment because Saturn is returning to Aries this month, and you naturally experience discipline as a test of self-reliance and courage. And with Saturn entering Aries and meeting up with Neptune, the restriction you may feel could center around your identity and who you are and your confidence. And you could feel blocked from moving forward or unsure on who is taking the action. And the Aquarius eclipse at the same time invites you to rethink your long-term vision, but the real work involves acting on faith. And so the lesson in hardship this month is to stop waiting for permission or the perfect time to do something. Just go for it. And discipline isn't about waiting. It's about taking the first step, even if you don't know how things are going to turn out. Saturn in Taurus, you value endurance, stability, and tangible results. And so Saturn entering Aries introduces an urgency that could feel jarring to your steady pace. And you could experience restriction as a pressure to speed up or to just do it before you have secured, what it is that you need to have, maybe resources or confidence. And the Neptune conjunction to Saturn this month kind of adds a layer of financial or material uncertainty, asking you to trust in, the security or the resources in your life that you cannot see. And so to properly tap into discipline, you must release the need for a guarantee. And hardship this month is managed by realizing that sometimes the most stable thing you can do is take a calculated risk. Saturn in Gemini, your discipline is usually very mental, and you structure your world through logic, communication, and categorization. And so the shift of Saturn into Aries really energizes your mental frameworks, asking you to turn your thoughts into immediate action. And then the Aquarius eclipse, which is ruled by Saturn, could bring a mental system reboot for you, maybe clearing out outdated ideas. And you might feel restricted by lack of focus or too many options in your life. And so the way through hardship this month is to just cut the noise. Do not over intellectualize the problem. Pick one solution, apply it with force, and do not look back. Saturn in Cancer, you experience structure through emotional security and protection. And Saturn in Aries this month serves as a tough love transit for you, which squares your natal energy, at least by sign. And so you could feel a restriction as a harshness in your environment or a demand to toughen up when you want to retreat. And the Neptune conjunction, however, kind of offers a bridge because it suggests that true strength includes vulnerability. And so to manage hard work this month, you must separate your feelings from your task. And discipline isn't about ignoring your emotions, but about not letting them stop you from doing what is necessary. Saturn in Leo, you naturally understand discipline when it is tied to creative expression or personal pride. And so Saturn in Aries kind of forms a trine to your placement, at least by sign, turning hard work into passion for you. And so the Aquarius eclipse this month, which is ruled by Saturn, really challenges you to consider the audience or the collective benefit when it comes to your efforts. And you could experience restriction if you try to do it all, for the applause. And by applause, I mean like the recognition of what you do rather than the actual impact of it. And so the key to dealing with hardship this month is to view it as part of your hero's journey and let the friction really refine your character and use your natural fire to burn through all the obstacles in your way. Saturn in Virgo, you find safety in details, routine, and analysis. And so Saturn entering Aries creates a friction between your need for order and the cosmos' demand for impulsive action. And so you could feel restricted by a chaotic environment where your usual organizational skills just don't seem to work. And the Neptune influence this month could also maybe dissolve your carefully laid plans. And so the lesson this month is that you cannot organize the ocean and you cannot script a battle. And so discipline this month means embracing good enough and moving forward, even if things aren't perfect. And hardship is overcome by focusing on practical efficacy rather than perfection. Saturn and Libra, you structure your life through how you mirror through your environment, maybe relationships, the idea of balance, and also social contracts. And with Saturn entering Aries, which is your opposite sign, the pressure could come from external sources, maybe partners, clients, open enemies, coworkers, friends, you name it. And they could enforce boundaries that you didn't ask for. And the Aquarius eclipse this month also highlights your social sphere, asking if your current alliances or your current friends or your current network really support your future, whether it's from an internal or an external level. And you could feel restricted by the demands of other people or a feeling that life is unfair. And so the way to tap into discipline this month is to establish a firm non-negotiable boundary in anything that you do, because dealing with hardship requires that you stop, trying to balance the scales at your own expense and to start advocating for your own needs first. Saturn in Scorpio, you possess a naturally intense sense of discipline that focuses on transformation and resilience. And Saturn in Aries shares your traditional ruler of Mars. And so you can understand this drive, but the Neptune conjunction kind of adds a confusing mist to your usual laser focus. And so you could experience restriction as a drain on your energy or a vague sense like you're fighting a ghost. And so also with the Aquarius eclipse, this asks you to detach emotionally just to see the bigger picture. And your discipline this month is best used by surrendering control over the outcome. And hardship is not a monster to be slain right now. It is a wave to be ridden. And if you can become the surfer, you can truly own your life. Saturn and Sagittarius, you find structure through belief systems, morality, and the pursuit of truth. And so Saturn entering Aries is a harmonious energy for you, at least by sign, encouraging you to walk the talk. And the Aquarius eclipse, which is ruled by Saturn, kind of stimulates your mind, urging you to update your philosophy. And you could feel restriction if you are stuck in dogmatic thinking or refuse to adapt your worldview. And then the Neptune conjunction kind of blurs the lines between reality and faith, which is something that you probably handle well. And so to manage hard work this month, focus on the why. And if you believe in the mission, the hardship becomes just another adventure. Saturn and Capricorn. Saturn is your ruler, and so these shifts will affect you deeply. You are the architect of the zodiac, and you're used to building slowly and methodically. So Saturn in Aries kind of introduces a cardinal clash. It wants to speed where you want caution, and so you could experience restriction as frustration with the pace of progress or reckless leadership around you. And the Neptune influence challenges your reliance on the material world, asking you to build with intuition. And so to deal with hardship this month, you must innovate. The old structures are probably dissolving, so use the Aquarius eclipse energy to blueprint something entirely new, even if it feels risky. Saturn in Aquarius, you structure your reality through systems, networks, and future ideals. With the eclipse in your sign and Saturn, which is your traditional ruler, entering Aries, the pressure is on you to manifest your concepts into reality. You could feel restriction as a heavy weight of responsibility or a sense of isolation. And then the Neptune conjunction warns against getting lost in a utopia that doesn't exist. And true discipline for you this month is practical application. Stop theorizing about the solution in whatever's happening in your life and start physically building it, because hardship is overcome by staying grounded in the present moment while keeping your eye on the future. Saturn in Pisces. Saturn has spent a long time in your sign, really teaching you how to give form to the formless. And then as it leaves for Aries, you could feel a sense of release, but also a call to apply what you have learned. And the Neptune conjunction to Aries this month keeps a thread of your energy alive, blending your intuition with the new demand for action. And you could experience restriction if you try to drift back into escapism. And so the way to properly tap into discipline this month is to treat your intuition as a hard fact. And so when you feel a nudge that's super strong, act on it immediately, and your hardship becomes manageable when you stop doubting your inner voice. And this is a lesson you can embrace this month.